Imagine a room wrapped in the quiet velvet of midnight, illuminated only by a single pale beam of moonlight slipping through a parted curtain. In that silver light, you can see thousands of tiny dust motes suspended in the air. They float in a slow, silent waltz, drifting without hurry, entirely unbound by the weight of the world below. As you watch them, your breathing aligns with their gentle rising and falling. The mind begins to quiet, settling into the stillness of the space. Now, let your awareness gently zoom in, moving past the edge of the dust, past the surface of things, diving deep into the hidden architecture of reality itself. Here, in the deepest layers of existence, the world operates on a completely different set of rules. It is a place of phantom waves, shimmering fields, and profound, exquisite interconnectedness. As we journey into this miniature cosmos tonight, you do not need to try to remember anything you hear. There will be no test, no need to focus, and no effort required. You are merely a passenger on a slow-drifting vessel, gliding through a landscape of beautiful ideas. Let your mind soften, relaxing its grip on the day. Let these concepts drift over you like the cool night air. Some ideas may catch your imagination and paint pictures behind your closed eyes. Others may simply pass through you, leaving only a lingering sense of peace. Whatever stays, stays. Whatever fades, fades. You're completely free to just listen, to let the rhythmic pulse of the universe carry you downward into a deep, untroubled rest. The physics of the very small is not a place of rigid lines and hard edges. It is a place of softness, of probability, of infinite potential waiting patiently in the dark. If you were to look down at your own hand, resting heavy and warm against the fabric of your bed, it feels entirely solid. It feels real, permanent, and dense. Yet, if we were to magnify the atoms that make up your skin, the bone, the fibers of the blankets beneath you, we would discover a beautiful illusion. At the quantum level, everything you can see and touch is almost entirely empty space. An atom is vast and hollow, much like a cathedral of empty night sky. If the nucleus of an atom were the size of a single pearl resting perfectly still in the centre of a grand sweeping stadium, the electrons would be tiny specks of dust swirling around the very highest, furthest bleachers. The space between them is completely empty. That means that you, the bed, the room, and the entire world outside your window are made of 99.9999% nothingness. But this nothingness is not a void. It is a quiet, holding space, filled with invisible, singing fields of force that bind the universe together. You are, quite literally, made of open space and starlight, held together by an elegant architecture of energy. There is no heavy density to carry. You are light, airy, and free to float. Even when we look at the emptiest patches of this space, the deepest, quietest voids between the stars, far away from any galaxies or nebulae, quantum physics tells us that this emptiness is not truly empty at all. It is not a dead, dark silence. Instead, the vacuum of space is alive. It hums with a gentle, eternal rhythm. In a phenomenon known as quantum fluctuations, tiny phantom particles are constantly bubbling into existence. They appear in pairs out of nowhere, sparkling for the briefest fraction of a millisecond, and then softly dissolving back into the fabric of the void. They are called virtual particles. Imagine a dark, placid ocean at night, where the surface is perfectly still, save for the occasional tiny phosphorescent bubble that rises, softly glows for a second, and quietly vanishes. The entirety of space is filled with this gentle, sparkling foam. It means that nowhere in the universe is truly alone or isolated. Everywhere, even in the darkest corners of the cosmos, the universe is breathing, shimmering with this endless, quiet dance of creation and dissolution. It is a comforting rhythm, a soft heartbeat woven into the very backdrop of reality. As we drift further into this shimmering ocean, the very nature of matter begins to soften and blur. In our everyday world, things are either solid objects like a pebble, or they are waves of energy, like a ripple moving across a quiet pond. But in the quantum realm, these two identities merge into a beautiful, flowing harmony known as wave-particle duality. The fundamental building blocks of the universe, the electrons in your body, the photons of light travelling from distant stars, do not behave like hard, tiny spheres. As they travel through the dark, they spread out, moving with the fluid grace of a wave. They flow gently through the universe, feeling out different paths, stretching their presence across the space like a soft mist rolling over a valley. It is only when they interact with something, only when they touch the world, that they gently collapse into a single point, softly landing like a raindrop on a leaf. This means that the matter making up your physical form is fundamentally musical. You're composed of countless tiny waves, vibrating and singing in perfect harmony, a symphony of probabilities rippling softly through the night. Because these particles travel as rippling waves of potential, they possess an extraordinary ability known as superposition. Before a quantum particle interacts with its environment, it does not exist in just one place or spin in just one direction. It exists in a state of suspended animation, occupying all its possible states at the exact same time. It is holding every option open, resting in a quiet balance of multiple realities. Imagine a silver coin spinning endlessly on a smooth, dark table. While it spins, it is neither heads nor tails. It is a shimmering, transparent blur of both, holding both possibilities in a perfect, continuous dance. It is only when you gently place your hand over the coin to stop it that it settles into one reality. In much the same way, the deep microscopic world is not locked into rigid certainty. It is a realm of open potential, where nothing is forced to choose its path until the very last moment. There is a deep, abiding freedom in this quantum softness. It reminds us that potential is boundless, that until a choice is made, all peaceful paths exist side by side, perfectly balanced in the quiet dark. Sometimes two of these spinning, potential-filled particles meet in the vastness of space and become deeply, profoundly connected. They undergo a beautiful process called quantum entanglement. When two particles become entangled, they share a single, unified state of being, no matter how far apart they may travel. One particle could remain right here, resting in the quiet air of your room, while the other could be carried away by cosmic winds to the very edge of the universe, billions of light years across the cold, velvet dark. Yet, despite the unimaginable distance, they remain perfectly paired. If the particle in your room gently shifts its spin, its partner at the edge of the universe will instantly and silently shift in response, moving in a perfect synchronized mirror dance. There is no delay. There is no signal travelling through the void. They simply know each other, intuitively and instantly. It is a quiet reminder that separation is, on some profound level, an illusion. The universe is entirely interwoven, a vast tapestry where the threads are deeply bonded, ensuring that nothing is truly lost and nothing is ever entirely alone. Because these interwoven particles are fundamentally waves of probability, they can move through the world in ways that seem entirely magical. If a rolling ball encounters a steep, high hill, and it does not have enough energy to climb over it, it will simply roll back down. It is blocked by a solid barrier. But in the quantum world, particles possess a gentle superpower known as quantum tunneling. When an electron flowing like a soft spreading mist meets an impenetrable barrier, a tiny portion of its wavy form simply seeps through to the other side. Like a ghost effortlessly walking through a thick stone wall, or like the scent of pine drifting effortlessly through a closed glass window, the particle suddenly finds itself on the other side of the obstacle, without ever having to exert the effort to climb over it. The barrier simply becomes irrelevant. This quiet, persistent seeping of energy is what makes the sun shine, allowing hydrogen atoms to fuse together in the star's core. It is a beautiful metaphor for moving through the world without resistance. Obstacles that appear completely solid are in truth porous and permeable. Sometimes you do not need to fight or push or climb. You can simply glide softly through the barriers, arriving peacefully on the other side. And yet, for all this ghost-like gliding and all the vast empty space within our atoms, we are still held safely in the physical world. We do not fall through our beds. We do not sink into the earth. The reason for this gentle, protective boundary is a beautifully elegant rule called the Pauli exclusion principle. This principle states that certain quantum particles, the ones that build the structure of matter, simply refuse to be compressed into the exact same state and the exact same space. When the atoms of your hand gently press against the atoms of the blanket, their electron clouds reach out to each other. Instead of passing through, they sense the presence of the other, and they politely push back. It is an invisible, silent resistance. You have never actually touched the true substance of anything in your life. What you feel when you stroke a soft petal, or when you rest your head against a cool pillow, is the electromagnetic resistance of these quantum fields gently repelling each other. You are hovering, always hovering, just an infinitesimal fraction of a millimeter above the surface of the world, supported by a gentle, invisible cushion of cosmic force. You're held softly and securely, cradled by the very laws of the universe. As we rest here, cradled by these invisible fields, the passage of time itself can begin to feel different. Time in the quantum world is not always a steady ticking clock. It responds to being watched. There is a fascinating phenomenon called the quantum Zeno effect. It is named after the ancient philosopher who imagined that an arrow in flight must be perfectly still at any given isolated moment. In the quantum realm, this thought experiment becomes a reality. If a quantum system is constantly and repeatedly observed, its natural evolution is interrupted. The continuous act of checking on it gently holds it in place, freezing it in time. It is as if the universe, feeling the soft weight of our gaze, pauses its endless shifting and rests. Imagine watching a delicate flower bloom in extreme slow motion, but finding that whenever you look directly at its petals, it stops unfolding, waiting in a perfect, suspended moment of grace. It is a phenomenon that whispers to us about the power of stillness and the profound, peaceful pause that exists within the present moment. By simply resting our awareness softly on the now, the rushing progression of time slows down, allowing us to linger in a serene, unending present. Within this frozen, quiet present, the only thing that moves is light. But quantum physics reveals that light is not a continuous, heavy beam pouring out of the sky. Instead, light is granular. It is delivered in tiny, indivisible, delicate packets of pure energy called photons. These are the quanta that give quantum physics its name. When a lamp glows in the corner of a room, or when a distant star shines through your window, it is not releasing a solid stream of light. It is sending out trillions upon trillions of these soft, weightless packets. They fly through the dark universe and arrive one by one. Imagine standing in a dry, calm field and suddenly feeling the very first solitary raindrops of a gentle spring shower landing softly on your skin, one distinct drop at a time. The moonlight that illuminates the dust motes in the air is composed of an uncountable number of these quantum raindrops, showering down from the lunar surface, travelling across the cold vacuum of space, just to gently touch the glass of your window. Light is a gentle, quiet rain of energy, softly illuminating the dark, painting the world dot by glowing dot. And if we trace that quiet rain of light back, deep into the very beginning of time, we discover the most beautiful connection of all. The infinitely small quantum world is the architect of the infinitely large cosmos. Billions of years ago, when the universe was younger than a fraction of a second, it was smaller than a single atom. In that microscopic state, the tiny bubbling quantum fluctuations, those gentle, shimmering virtual particles we saw in the quiet vacuum, caused infinitesimal ripples in the fabric of the young universe. As space expanded, those tiny, soft quantum ripples stretched out. They grew larger and larger, becoming the vast swirling clouds of gas and dust that eventually clumped together to form the galaxies, the stars, and the planets. The beautiful spiralling arms of the Milky Way, the quiet orbit of our Earth, and the vast sweeping architecture of the night sky are all simply magnified reflections of the microscopic quantum foam. The smallest, softest whispers of existence gave birth to the grandest tapestries of the heavens. As you drift closer to sleep, remember that the quiet, hidden rhythms of the quantum world are not just around you. They are the very melody that sang the universe into being. The stars outside your window are singing the same gentle atomic song that hums softly within you. As you listen to that quiet inner hum, picture a substance so profoundly calm that it completely forgets the concept of friction. Deep in laboratories where temperatures are gently lowered to the very edge of absolute zero, an element like helium transforms into something entirely magical, called a superfluid. At this magnificent, shivering depth of cold, the restless jitter of normal atomic heat fades away, leaving a perfect glassy stillness. When helium enters this state, it can flow endlessly without ever slowing down. If you were to set it swirling in a delicate glass cup, it would continue to spin forever, long after you and I are gone, a tiny, eternal whirlpool of quiet momentum. It can even seep through microscopic pores in solid ceramic, or glide silently up and over the walls of its container, defying gravity with a soft, liquid grace. There is no resistance here, no dragging, no wear and tear. It reminds us that when things become completely still, when the frantic heat of the day is finally released, new and effortless ways of moving become possible. You too can slip into this frictionless state. As your breathing settles and your muscles soften against the mattress, you can allow the events of the day to simply glide past you, smooth and untethered, requiring no energy at all to let them go. In this profound cold, where the frantic energy of the world falls asleep, we find another kind of quiet suspension. Imagine a small silver disc resting just above a magnetic track. When this disc is cooled to the point where its quantum nature takes over, it becomes a superconductor, expelling all magnetic fields from its core in a gentle, invisible breath. This beautiful act of boundaries is known as the Meissner effect. As it pushes the magnetic field away, the disc lifts off the surface, locking itself into the empty air. It does not wobble. It does not drift. It is suspended in a state of quantum levitation, hovering in perfect, absolute stillness. You can slide it along the track, and it will glide like a ghost, resting on a cushion of invisible architecture. It is held safely in the grip of the unseen field, neither falling down nor flying away. There is a deep comfort in knowing that physics allows for such perfect, effortless suspension. In this moment, as your body grows heavier and sinks into the warmth of the bed, your mind can be like that floating silver disc. It can elevate just slightly above the physical weight of the world, locked safely in a quiet, hovering peace, supported entirely by the gentle forces of the room around you. If we follow this descent into the ultimate quiet even further, the very concept of being an individual, separate thing begins to melt away. When a cloud of atoms is cooled to just a fraction of a degree above absolute zero, they stop bouncing, stop racing, and simply quiet down. As they lose their energy, their quantum wave-like natures begin to spread out, growing wider and softer in the dark. Eventually, these soft waves overlap and merge. Thousands of separate atoms suddenly collapse into a single, unified quantum entity known as a bose-einstein condensate. They lose all their distinct boundaries. They are no longer a collection of individual pieces, but one giant singing superatom, breathing and resting as a single, beautiful whole. It is as if a chorus of 1,000 different voices gently tapered off their individual notes and seamlessly blended into one pure, sustaining chord. This is the ultimate form of rest in the physical universe. It reveals that at the very foundation of reality, when all stress and heat are removed, The natural tendency of matter is to seek unity, to soften its edges, and to become entirely whole. Your thoughts too can lose their sharp, separate edges tonight, blurring together into a single, continuous feeling of deep, untroubled rest. This quiet intelligence of the quantum world is not only found in the freezing dark laboratories of the extreme, it is breathing right outside your window in the lush green leaves of the trees resting under the night sky. For a long time, scientists wondered how plants could be so incredibly efficient at capturing sunlight and turning it into life. The answer lies in the soft magic of quantum biology. When a tiny photon of light strikes a leaf, it creates a delicate packet of energy. This energy needs to find its way deeper into the plant cell to be used, but instead of wandering blindly through the microscopic labyrinth, it uses the magic of quantum superposition. The energy spreads out like a rippling wave, gently exploring every possible path through the leaf at the exact same time. By testing all routes simultaneously, it instantly and silently finds the quickest, most perfect path, arriving with almost zero wasted effort. The trees in the forest, standing silent in the dark, are performing billions of these brilliant quantum calculations every millisecond, effortlessly weaving sunlight into life. It is a beautiful reminder that nature does not force its way through the world. It flows, it feels its way forward, and it uses the profound softness of quantum mechanics to thrive with elegant, quiet grace. As the leaves quietly breathe below, high above them, traversing the midnight sky, flocks of migrating birds are using another quantum secret to guide them safely home. The European robin, a small, delicate creature flying thousands of miles across oceans and continents in the dark, does not use landmarks or memory alone. Hidden within the bird's eye is a highly specialized protein. When a faint drop of starlight or moonlight enters the eye, it strikes this protein and creates a pair of quantum entangled electrons. These two linked particles, dancing their synchronized mirror dance, are incredibly sensitive to the invisible sweeping magnetic field of the Earth. As the bird turns its head, the magnetic field gently tugs on these entangled electrons, creating a subtle signal that allows the robin to literally see the magnetic lines of the planet, draped across the sky like glowing, guiding ribbons. A tiny bird, trusting the vast darkness, is steered by the deepest, most complex physics of the universe occurring inside its very eye. You do not need to know the way forward right now. Just as the bird yields to the invisible pull of the Earth, resting on the currents of the night air, you can trust that there are quiet, unseen forces guiding you perfectly, allowing you to simply close your eyes and drift. While the birds soar through the upper atmosphere, a much quieter, more invisible rain is falling all around us, passing straight through the roof, your resting body, and deep into the bedrock of the Earth. These are neutrinos, often called ghost particles. They are born in the fiery distant hearts of stars and in the bright sweeping arms of distant galaxies, travelling across billions of light years of empty space just to reach us. But neutrinos possess a remarkably fluid identity. There are three distinct types, or flavours, of neutrinos. As they fly through the silent vacuum of space at nearly the speed of light, they do not stay locked as just one type. Driven by the strange, rippling rules of quantum mechanics, they softly morph and oscillate, transforming from one flavour into another and then back again, like a slow, rhythmic breathing. They are cosmic shapeshifters, refusing to be bound to a single definition. Trillions of these gentle ghosts are passing softly through your fingertips right now, completely unnoticed, changing their very nature as they go. They teach us that identity is not always a rigid, heavy thing. It can be fluid, travelling effortlessly through the densest obstacles, adapting and flowing as it moves through the dark. Nothing needs to be held too tightly. Even the messengers of the stars change their shape in the quiet of the night. Deep within those shifting, ghostly particles, and within the familiar electrons of your own body, there is a hidden geometry that defies the strict logic of our waking world. It is a mysterious property called quantum spin. If you take a familiar object like a smooth round stone or a favourite book and turn it one full circle, 360 degrees, it looks exactly as it did when you started. But the fundamental particles of the universe, the ones known as fermions, live by a different, more intricate rhythm. If you were to magically rotate an electron by 360 degrees, it would not return to its original state. It would be entirely upside down, mathematically flipped by the turn. To return it to its true original face, you must rotate it again, turning it through a full 720 degrees. It is as if the particle exists in a world with a double-folded fabric of space, requiring 2 full journeys around the sun to complete a single year. It is a slow, elegant symmetry, a reminder that the world has layers of depth that we cannot always see on the surface. There is no rush to complete the circle. Sometimes, true return, true rest, requires moving through the dark twice, slowly unwinding the hidden folds of the day until everything is perfectly aligned again. This invisible, folded geometry of space is not just a mathematical curiosity, it has a gentle, physical touch. Earlier, we imagined the vacuum of space not as a dead emptiness, but as a shimmering ocean of virtual particles bubbling into and out of existence. This quiet ocean actually exerts a soft, almost imperceptible pressure on the physical world. If you were to take 2 incredibly smooth, uncharged metal mirrors, so flat that they look like perfectly still water, and place them facing each other just a few nanometers apart in an absolute vacuum, something wondrous happens. The space outside the mirrors is filled with all sizes of these virtual quantum waves, but the space between the mirrors is so narrow that only the smallest, shortest waves can fit. Because there are more waves pushing from the outside than from the inside, the 2 mirrors are gently, inexorably pushed together. This is the Casimir effect. It is the literal pressure of nothingness, the softest embrace in the universe, bringing 2 surfaces together using only the weight of the quantum void. It shows us that emptiness is not something to fear. It is a supportive, holding presence. The quiet spaces in your life, the silences between your thoughts, have their own gentle gravity, softly drawing you inward toward a place of profound connection and peace. Even the most massive, dense, and seemingly permanent structures in the cosmos are gently touched by this quantum softness. Far out in the deepest reaches of the night, black holes stand as silent sentinels, regions of gravity so unfathomably strong that not even light can escape their pull. For a long time, it was believed that they were eternal, cosmic traps where things go in and never, ever return. But the quantum realm offers a softer, more forgiving truth, famously detailed by the physicist Stephen Hawking. At the very edge of a black hole, right on the invisible boundary of no return, those pairs of shimmering virtual particles are constantly appearing. Occasionally, one particle is pulled into the dark, while its partner softly escapes into the vastness of space. Over billions of trillions of years, this microscopic, steady leakage causes the black hole to slowly, gently evaporate. It radiates its massive weight away in a quiet, incredibly cold mist of quantum light. Even the heaviest, darkest burdens in the universe are not forever. They slowly dissolve, softening at their edges, atom by atom, returning their energy to the great, peaceful ocean of space. Whatever heaviness you feel, whatever dark gravity seems to pull at your mind, it too is subject to this slow, inevitable softening. It will quietly evaporate, leaving only the calm, open dark. As this heavy darkness dissolves, we find that even time itself, the steady forward march of the clock, is surprisingly flexible in the quantum world. In our everyday lives, we assume that the past is entirely written in stone, fixed and unchangeable by what we do today. Yet, in incredibly delicate experiments involving individual photons of light, scientists have observed something called the delayed choice quantum eraser. In these intricate mazes of mirrors and crystals, a tiny particle of light is sent down a path. The remarkable discovery is that the choice of how we measure that particle at the very end of its journey can actually reach backward in time, quietly rewriting the path the particle took at the very beginning. The present moment softly ripples backward, smoothing out the history of the light. It is as if the universe leaves its history in pencil, waiting to see how the story unfolds before tracing it gently in ink. This fluid nature of time is a profound comfort. It means the rigid lines of cause and effect are blurred by a soft quantum haze. The past is not a heavy chain pulling you backward. It is a gentle shadow, softly shifting in the light of your present awareness. You're completely free to rest here, right now, in the stillness of the center, where all moments meet and softly blend into one another. In that quiet center where all moments seamlessly blend, we find another gentle truth about the delicate relationship between time and energy. In the macroscopic world, we're used to things being well defined, but the quantum realm operates on a beautiful principle of uncertainty, elegantly linking the duration of an event with the energy it holds. Imagine looking out over a serene, perfectly still lake at dawn. If you only look at the water for a fraction of a millionth of a second, the surface might seem unpredictable, capturing the sudden, chaotic energy of a single splashing drop. But if you sit on the shore and watch the water for a long, unbroken stretch of time, that momentary energy smooths out, revealing a vast, perfectly calm, and highly certain state of rest. In the physics of the very small, the longer a particle is allowed to exist in a single state, the more peaceful and defined its energy becomes. It is only when time is rushed, squeezed into microscopic, hurried fractions, that energy becomes frantic. This physical law whispers a beautiful instruction for our own rest. By giving yourself the gift of long, stretched-out time tonight, by not rushing the process of falling asleep, you allow your own energy to smooth out, to become calm, known, and perfectly settled. You do not need to hurry. The universe rewards patience with absolute quiet certainty. This quiet, certain energy eventually settles down into the solid objects we can see and touch, creating hidden cathedrals of magnificent order. Consider the delicate, creeping frost that forms on a cold window pane in the depths of winter. To the naked eye, it is a sprawling, chaotic fern of ice. But deep within, guided by the strict, elegant rules of quantum mechanics, every single water molecule is locking arms in a perfect, repeating geometric grid known as a crystal lattice. Yet, even in this freezing, rigid perfection, there is a soft, internal music. When warmth or sound touches the frost, it does not just vibrate randomly. The vibration travels through the crystal in perfectly packaged, distinct ripples of quantum sound called phonons. They are tiny, indivisible notes of heat and motion, singing silently as they glide through the frozen architecture. The physical world around you is constantly humming with these invisible, quantified songs. As the night grows cooler, the phonons in the walls, the glass, and the wood around you gently fade, their song dropping to a soft, rhythmic whisper, lulling the entire house to sleep. Just as the solid world holds its own hidden, quantum music, the scents drifting gently through the night air possess their own delicate, vibrating rhythms. Imagine the soothing, earthy scent of rain falling on dry soil, or the calm, floral note of lavender resting softly on your pillow. For a long time, we believed our sense of smell was purely a matter of shape, like a physical key fitting perfectly into a biological lock within the nose. But a beautiful theory called quantum olfaction suggests something far more magical. It proposes that the receptors in our noses are actually listening to the specific quantum vibrations of the molecules we breathe. As a fragrant molecule of lavender drifts into the warm, dark space of the olfactory bulb, an electron from our own body may use quantum tunneling to softly leap across the molecule, reading its exact shimmering vibration. We do not just feel the shape of the world, we listen to its microscopic quantum chords. Every breath you take is an intimate, harmonious interaction with the surrounding air, an effortless exchange of invisible music that tells your mind it is safe, it is home, and it is time to rest. As you breathe in that cool night air, notice how the tension in your body is beginning to gently dissolve. The weight of your limbs is pulling you deeper into the mattress, and your breath is finding its own slow, automatic rhythm. You do not need to guide it anymore, you can simply let go. As the body grows heavier, it is fascinating to realize that the sensation of weight and the speed of light are quietly entangled in the quantum world, creating the colors we find most precious. Think of a smooth, heavy ring of pure gold resting quietly in a dark velvet box. Why does it possess that warm, rich yellow glow, unlike the cold, bright silver of most other metals? The answer lies in a stunning collaboration between quantum mechanics and the theory of relativity. The nucleus of a gold atom is so immensely heavy and positively charged that its innermost electrons are forced to whip around it at nearly the speed of light. Because they are moving so incredibly fast, relativity causes these electrons to become heavier, which elegantly shifts the entire quantum structure of the atom. This shift absorbs the blue light of the spectrum, reflecting only the warm, sunset hues of yellow and red into our eyes. Every time humanity has admired the ancient warm glow of gold, we have been unknowingly looking at the shadow of relativity in the rapid quantum dance of light. This same ambient light, when it passes through a different kind of ancient stone, reveals a completely different kind of quantum secret. Imagine a perfectly clear, deeply buried diamond, forged over billions of years in the immense silent heat of the Earth's mantle. We think of diamonds as flawless, but their true quantum beauty actually comes from their tiny invisible imperfections. Sometimes, a single nitrogen atom slips into the brilliant repeating carbon lattice, creating a microscopic empty gap right next to it. This tiny structural flaw is called a nitrogen vacancy center. Rather than ruining the stone, this quiet, empty space acts as a perfect natural trap for capturing and holding single quantum particles like electrons completely still. Even at comfortable warm room temperatures, this microscopic cage protects the delicate, shimmering quantum state from the chaotic heat of the outside world. It holds the particle in a gentle, suspended grace, keeping its quantum memory perfectly intact. It is a profound reminder that perfection is not required to hold on to something precious. Sometimes, it is the soft, empty spaces, the quiet gaps and gentle flaws that create the most stable, secure environments for deep, lasting preservation. While diamonds hold their trapped light in a firm, ancient and unyielding grip, the most essential substance on our planet holds its quantum secrets in a fluid, yielding embrace. Imagine a deep, dark forest lake in the dead of winter. The surface is frozen solid, a thick sheet of white ice, but beneath it the dark water remains liquid, providing a safe, insulated haven for everything resting below. This life-saving grace happens because water behaves unlike almost any other liquid on Earth. It expands when it freezes, making ice lighter than water. The secret to this gentle expansion lies in the quantum fluctuations of its hydrogen bonds. The tiny hydrogen atoms connecting the water molecules do not sit still. They blur and stretch, occasionally using quantum tunneling to softly seep into new positions. This constant microscopic blurring pushes the molecules just slightly further apart as they cool and lock into place, swelling the ice outward. Without this subtle quantum stretching, ice would sink, the oceans would freeze from the bottom up, and the world would be a cold, lifeless stone. The softness, the yielding, vibrating nature of the water molecule is the very thing that protects and nurtures life during the long, dark cold. The mind, too, has its own deep, insulated waters, As you drift further down into sleep, you might find your thoughts becoming like those slow, fluid currents beneath the ice, safe, detached, and moving with a slow, effortless grace. The surface world can freeze or storm, but deep down there is only a quiet, unbroken calm. Nothing needs to be held too tightly. In the depths of the ocean, where the water is thick, black, and completely silent, this fluid calm can occasionally give birth to a miraculous fleeting flash of light. This phenomenon is known as sonoluminescence, or the star in a jar. When a specific high-frequency sound wave passes through the water, it can create a tiny, microscopic bubble of empty space. As the surrounding water pressure collapses this bubble, the gas inside is compressed so profoundly and so rapidly that the interior temperature spikes to tens of thousands of degrees, hotter than the surface of the sun. For the briefest, most astonishing fraction of a nanosecond, the collapsing void emits a soft blue flash of pure light, born from the dark. Some physicists believe this flash is coaxed into existence by the sudden shifting of the quantum vacuum itself, drawing light out of the empty space. It is a beautiful testament to the hidden potential resting within the dark. Even in the deepest, most crushing depths, a simple, travelling wave of sound can softly coax a tiny star into existence. From that tiny, momentary spark of blue light suspended in the deep ocean water, we can look back to the solid ground, to the heavy iridescent metals resting deep within the crust of the earth. Imagine a crystal of bismuth growing slowly in the dark. It does not form smooth, rounded shapes. Instead, it crystallizes into mesmerizing right-angled stair-step pyramids that shimmer with a natural iridescent rainbow of pinks, golds, and blues. Bismuth possesses an incredibly rare and gentle quantum property called strong diamagnetism. Unlike iron, which is sharply pulled to a magnet, the sprawling complex electron clouds of a bismuth atom softly and naturally repel magnetic fields. If you were to place a tiny, powerful magnet between two heavy blocks of bismuth, the magnet would not stick to them, nor would it fall. The opposing quantum fields would gently push back from both sides, cradling the magnet in the empty air, holding it in a permanent floating state of levitation. It requires no power source, no electricity, and no effort. It is simply the natural quiet disposition of the metal to push away unseen forces, creating a pocket of perfect untouched peace in the centre. This same gentle, unseen force that floats the magnet, this quiet manipulation of the quantum realm, also works tirelessly within your own resting body, right in this very moment. As you sleep, your cells are undertaking the monumental quiet task of repairing, rebuilding, and rejuvenating your tissues. This healing process relies on proteins called enzymes, which act as microscopic builders, speeding up essential chemical reactions. For decades, scientists could not understand how these enzymes worked so incredibly fast, performing chemical transformations in milliseconds that should normally take thousands of years. The answer is a soft biological miracle. Your body uses quantum tunneling. The enzymes gently grab hold of the molecules and fold them in such a precise, perfect way that the electrons and protons do not have to climb the high-energy barriers required to react. Instead, they simply ghost through the walls, slipping softly from one molecule to another. You do not have to consciously direct this. You do not have to expend any waking effort to heal. Deep inside your cells, billions of tiny quantum builders are taking elegant, invisible shortcuts through the fabric of reality, effortlessly mending you, restoring you, and preparing you for the gentle light of morning. And as we consider the miracle of these tiny, perfect mechanisms holding the quiet architecture of your body together, we can zoom all the way out, past the room, past the Earth, to the very edge of the cosmos itself. In the deepest, most theoretical realms of quantum gravity, physicists ponder a beautiful, sweeping idea known as the holographic principle. It suggests that all the three-dimensional reality we experience, the vastness of space, the depth of the oceans, the heavy, solid feeling of the mountains, and the deep, rich complexity of our own lives, might actually be a magnificent projection. It proposes that the fundamental quantum information that makes up everything in the universe is perfectly, eternally encoded on a distant two-dimensional boundary enveloping the cosmos. Imagine a flat, shimmering surface at the very end of space, containing the exact, perfect blueprint of every star, every thought, and every falling leaf, projected inward to create the deep, immersive hologram of the reality we walk through. It is a profoundly calming thought. It implies that nothing is ever truly lost in the deep well of space. Every fleeting moment, every soft breath, every quiet night of rest is securely, elegantly recorded on the outer canvas of the universe. The entirety of existence is a beautiful, intricate projection of light and information, held safely at the edge of eternity, allowing you to simply wander through the dream, perfectly secure in the knowledge that the universe remembers it all. This comforting assurance that the universe remembers every detail is not just a poetic metaphor. It is a profound, unbreakable physical law of the quantum world. In our everyday macroscopic lives, if you were to write a secret on a piece of delicate paper and throw it into a warm, crackling fire, it seems as though that information is entirely destroyed. The paper turns to brittle grey ash, the ink dissolves into invisible heat, and the smoke drifts away into the night sky. But according to the quantum no-hiding theorem, the universe has not lost a single detail. The exact fundamental information of that paper, the precise arrangement of its atoms and the pattern of the ink, has simply become deeply entangled with the surrounding environment. It has scattered into the thermal radiation, woven into the swirling smoke and dispersed into the quiet air. The universe acts as an eternal, flawless vault. Nothing is ever truly erased, and nothing is ever permanently lost in the dark. It is simply translated into a softer, wider, and more complex language. In this quiet moment, your mind can simply drift, trusting that it does not need to fiercely hold on to every passing thought or memory, because the fabric of reality itself is holding on to everything for you. Descending from that vast cosmic memory down to the damp, quiet micro-landscapes of a shadowy forest floor, we find that the boundary between the living world and the ghostly quantum realm is beautifully porous. Deep in the cool green moss of the woods live tardigrades, microscopic creatures known as water bears, famous for their ability to survive the most extreme, freezing conditions in the universe by entering a state of complete dormant suspension. In recent groundbreaking laboratory experiments, scientists managed to place one of these sleeping biological creatures into a state of direct quantum entanglement with a superconducting circuit. For a brief, magical window of time, the living, breathing organism and the freezing, vibrating quantum machine shared a single, unified existence. Their fundamental properties perfectly mirrored and linked. It revealed that life itself can touch the strange, suspended void of the deep quantum world and return perfectly whole, waking up from the freezing dark without a single scratch. It is a stunning reminder of the resilience of the living body. You possess that same ancient biological durability, capable of sinking into the deepest, most quiet states of unconscious suspension, knowing that you will effortlessly return to the waking world when the morning comes. If you were to look up from that soft, resilient forest moss and peer through the smooth, cool pane of a nearby cabin window, you would be looking right through one of the most misunderstood and fascinating quantum structures in our daily lives. Glass feels incredibly solid to the touch. It is hard, cold, and unyielding. Yet, at the microscopic level, glass is classified as an amorphous solid. When it was forged in the heat of a furnace, its atoms danced in a chaotic liquid frenzy. But as it cooled, the temperature dropped too quickly for the atoms to find their perfect, repeating, crystalline order. Instead, they became trapped in a disorganized, frustrated web. They are frozen in place, but they are not entirely at rest. Driven by tiny, persistent quantum fluctuations, the atoms in the glass are constantly, microscopically shifting, attempting to find a more perfect geometry, forever settling, but never truly arriving at absolute rest. It is a beautiful physical metaphor for finding peace in imperfection. You do not need to have everything in your life perfectly aligned or every situation perfectly resolved to experience stillness. You can find deep, profound rest right in the middle of a disorganized, beautifully complex state of being. Through that very same window pane, the pale silver light of the moon might gently illuminate objects in the room, casting long, quiet shadows across the floor. Sometimes, this light lingers in a way that seems to defy the rapid speed of the waking world. If you have ever seen a pale, glowing stone or tiny luminescent stars painted on a dark ceiling, you have witnessed the quiet magic of phosphorescence. When normal light strikes an object, its electrons jump to a higher energy state and instantly fall back down, reflecting colour in a fraction of a microsecond. But in phosphorescent materials, the incoming light bumps an electron into a very specific, rare quantum position. In doing so, the electron's quantum spin is gently flipped. According to the strict rules of quantum mechanics, it is now forbidden for that electron to simply drop back down. It becomes trapped in a glowing, suspended waiting room. It must wait for a random, tiny vibration to flip its spin back, allowing it to slowly, patiently release its trapped light, one soft photon at a time. It is a delayed, gentle exhale of energy that can last for hours in the pitch black. There is no rush in the dark. It is perfectly fine to process the energy of the day slowly, releasing it drop by drop into the quiet night. As you lie perfectly still in this gentle, glowing dark, notice how the mattress rises to meet you, supporting the natural, heavy comfort of your resting limbs. Your breath settles, finding a slow, rhythmic cadence, and the body grows heavier, sinking deeper into the warmth of the bed. This familiar feeling of weight, of solid physical presence, is actually a magnificent gift from an invisible cosmic ocean known as the Higgs field. Many quantum fields in the universe drop to a state of absolute zero when they are empty, but the Higgs field is different. Even in the most perfect, freezing vacuum of deep space, the Higgs field maintains a quiet, steady, non-zero presence. It rests like a thick, invisible molasses that permeates every single inch of the cosmos. As the fundamental building blocks of your body move through this field, they interact with it, gathering drag and resistance. This gentle cosmic friction is what we experience as mass. Without the constant, quiet embrace of the Higgs field, the particles making up your form would be entirely weightless, scattering into the void at the speed of light. You are grounded, anchored, and securely held down by this permanent invisible blanket, keeping you safely tethered to the Earth. While we are safely anchored to the heavy Earth, the very top of our atmosphere is constantly brushing against the weightless, electric wind of the sun, creating the most breathtaking macroscopic display of microscopic quantum physics. High above the frozen poles in the freezing silent thermosphere, shimmering ribbons of green, magenta and violet light drape across the night sky. This is the aurora borealis. These sweeping celestial curtains are not painted by scattered sunlight, but by billions of individual quantum leaps. High-energy electrons travelling from the sun are softly funneled by the Earth's magnetic field into the upper atmosphere. There, they collide with floating atoms of oxygen and nitrogen. The atoms absorb the shock of the collision, their own electrons leaping up to a higher vibrating quantum ledge. But they cannot stay there. As they softly step back down to their resting state, they exhale their gathered energy as a single glowing photon of coloured light. The entire upper sky is acting as a massive protective shield, breathing in the chaotic electric solar wind and breathing out pure, harmonious, cascading quantum colour. It is a vast, beautiful filter, turning the harsh energy of the solar system into a soft, mesmerising lullaby of light. Imagine pulling just one single drop of that radiant green light from the sweeping auroras, isolating a solitary, lonely photon in the absolute quiet of a darkened laboratory. If you were to send that single particle of light toward a barrier with two incredibly thin parallel slits, something miraculous happens, revealing a comforting truth about the nature of isolation. You might expect a single particle to act like a tiny pebble, forced to choose just one slit to pass through. But the quantum world operates on a softer logic. Because the photon travels as a spreading wave of probability, it glides through both openings simultaneously. On the other side of the barrier, it actually interferes with itself, interacting with the ghostly echoes of its own divided path, eventually landing on a screen to form a complex striped pattern of alternating light and dark bands. This elegant experiment shows us that even when travelling completely alone in the dark, a quantum particle is accompanied by the vast spreading waves of its own potential. It is interacting with the beautiful possibilities of its own existence. It tells us that even in our quietest, most solitary moments, we are never truly empty. We are filled with the soft, echoing waves of everything we can be, expanding smoothly into the open space ahead. This profound inner architecture of light and matter is so brilliantly constructed that it can withstand the most crushing, unimaginably heavy forces in the cosmos. Deep in the freezing void of space, when a massive star exhausts its nuclear fuel, it can no longer generate the outward heat needed to support its own immense weight. Gravity takes over, attempting to violently crush the entire star down into a microscopic, infinitely dense point. But the star is saved by a beautiful, unbreakable quantum shield called degeneracy pressure. As the atoms are squeezed closer and closer together, the electrons are forced into smaller and smaller spaces. But the Pauli exclusion principle dictates a hard limit. These fundamental particles absolutely refuse to occupy the exact same quantum state. As they run out of room, they push back against the crushing weight of the dying sun with a silent, ferocious and unbreakable resistance. This invisible quantum push creates white dwarfs and neutron stars, perfectly balanced spheres of matter standing firm against the dark, refusing to collapse. There is a deep foundational strength within the very atoms of your being. It is a natural, unyielding boundary that quietly pushes back against the weight of the world, keeping you whole, safe, and perfectly intact. Eventually, the quiet rotation of this heavy, secure Earth will carry the long night toward the dawn, and the darkness will softly yield to a brilliant pale blue. When the morning comes, the sky will not be coloured by a giant painted dome, but by an ocean of microscopic, bouncing quantum interactions known as Rayleigh scattering. The specific quantum configuration of the nitrogen and oxygen molecules in our atmosphere is perfectly tuned like a vast invisible instrument. When the broad spectrum of white light from the sun enters the air, the long lazy waves of red and yellow pass straight through, but the short, energetic, vibrating waves of blue light perfectly match the resonant frequency of the air molecules. The gas atoms catch the blue photons, hold them for an imperceptible fraction of a microsecond, and softly scatter them in every possible direction. When you open your eyes to the day, you're not looking at empty space. You're looking at a glowing atmospheric canopy, entirely illuminated by trillions of blue quantum echoes bouncing gently from atom to atom. The daytime sky is a masterpiece of quantum scattering, a soft, endless ocean of light gently draping over the waking world. As we imagine resting under that sprawling, scattered canopy of blue, we come to a profound realization about the very nature of our own, deeply personal experience of reality. In advanced theoretical physics, there is a fascinating concept known as Wigner's friend, which explores the idea of relative quantum realities. In intricate thought experiments and mathematical models, it has been shown that it is entirely possible for two different observers to witness the exact same quantum event and record entirely different, yet equally valid outcomes. The universe does not force a single, harsh, objective truth upon everyone at the quantum level. It softly bends and adapts. It creates a deeply personal, uniquely entangled reality between the observer and the observed. Your perspective, your quiet presence, is literally woven into the fabric of the cosmos you experience. The world you see and feel is softly responding to your unique point of view. As you drift ever closer to the edge of deep sleep, know that the universe you inhabit is yours alone. It is a gentle, accommodating space, shaped by your quiet breathing and your resting mind, ready to fold smoothly and seamlessly into the soft, welcoming landscape of your dreams. In that soft landscape of dreams, where the mind rests and the physical body becomes wonderfully, deeply still, you might naturally imagine that true peace requires a complete and utter halt of all motion. You might picture a world frozen in ice, entirely drained of warmth and vibration. But the deep quantum world offers a gentler, far more comforting definition of stillness. Imagine a perfectly crafted silver pendulum, suspended by a delicate thread inside a dark, quiet, vacuum-sealed glass case. In the classical physics of our everyday world, if you were to slowly drain all the heat, all the light, and all the ambient energy from that room, the pendulum would eventually hang dead center, frozen and completely motionless. But quantum mechanics reveals the beautiful, persistent truth of zero-point energy. Even at absolute zero, in the deepest, most profound and crushing cold imaginable, the universe simply does not allow for complete rigid paralysis. The tiny atoms making up that silver pendulum will always retain a minuscule, irreducible quiver, a baseline hum of existence that can never be frozen away. It is the fundamental quiet heartbeat of reality, a soft, eternal vibration that hums beneath the silence. It means that even in your deepest states of physical rest, when you feel entirely drained of waking energy, your core is still alive, still gently humming, holding safely onto a spark of quiet vitality that can never be extinguished. This eternal, subtle hum at the very foundation of reality occasionally organizes itself into structures that defy our everyday understanding of space, form, and time. We are deeply familiar with the beautiful repeating patterns of a pale quartz crystal or a cold, heavy diamond, where carbon and silicon atoms are locked into a steady, frozen geometric grid across physical space. But recently, working in the quiet isolation of hyperchilled laboratories, physicists have coaxed matter into a completely new, breathtaking state of existence known as a time crystal. In a time crystal, the atoms do not form a repeating static pattern in physical space. Instead, they form a perfectly repeating pattern in the flowing river of time itself. Imagine a delicate, microscopic silver chime that rings, softly and perfectly, in an endless, rhythmic loop, without ever losing a single drop of acoustic energy. It requires no winding, no external battery, and no initial push to keep it going. It simply beats and breathes in a state of eternal, frictionless repetition, forever returning to its starting point. A time crystal achieves its ultimate state of rest by remaining in constant, perfect, unyielding rhythm. As you lie here, listening to the steady rising and falling tide of your own breath, you're tapping into this same ancient rhythmic symmetry. You can let go of the need to control the tempo of the night, allowing your body to find its own effortless repeating pulse in the quiet dark. As your breath settles into that effortless repeating rhythm, a profound coolness often begins to wash over the physical body, a natural, gentle dropping of internal temperature that signals to the mind the onset of deep, restorative sleep. In the grandest, most silent laboratories of the world, scientists use light itself to create this very same kind of ultimate resting cold. We normally think of light, like a harsh sunbeam or a piercing laser, as something that brings intense heat, agitation, and burning energy. But through a remarkably delicate, counterintuitive technique called Doppler cooling, a laser can be used to stop an atom completely in its tracks. Imagine a single, glowing atom of rubidium, drifting chaotically through a dark vacuum chamber. A scientist fires a perfectly tuned, meticulously calibrated beam of soft light directly at it. As the atom absorbs and instantly re-emits these tiny photons, it loses just a microscopic fraction of its momentum with every single interaction. It is exactly like trying to walk rapidly forward through a gentle, endless, heavy flurry of weightless snow. Gradually, gracefully, the atom slows down. Its frantic, hot movements are gently, persistently cushioned by the light until it comes to a near-perfect freezing standstill. Light, in its most precise and careful form, does not burn or agitate, it softly embraces. It cradles the frantic racing matter of the world and whispers for it to be still. Yet, even as the world cools and slows down under this gentle blanket of light, there are certain rare materials that simply refuse to freeze into a rigid, hard, uncompromising structure. Deep within the Earth, hidden inside complex iridescent minerals, there exists a state of matter known as a quantum spin liquid. Usually when a magnetic material becomes profoundly cold, the north and south poles of its atoms eventually lock together in a firm, alternating grid, much like a microscopic chessboard of magnets permanently frozen in place. But in a quantum spin liquid, the magnetic forces are arranged in overlapping frustrated triangles, creating a beautifully complex geometry of indecision. The atoms simply cannot agree on how to settle down into a fixed pattern, so even when plunged into the most extreme, freezing temperatures of the universe, they do not lock. They continue to flow, to shift, and to softly dance in a state of eternal liquid entanglement. They remain entirely soft and fluid in the dark, resisting the cold urge to become solid stone. As the muscles of your jaw relax and your shoulders sink heavier and heavier into the warm mattress beneath you, you too can embrace this state of fluid, yielding rest. You do not need to lock your thoughts into rigid patterns or finalize every decision before tomorrow. It is perfectly safe to let your mind remain fluid, shifting softly like water without ever needing to solidify. This fluid, unsolidified nature of reality is not just a ghost story confined to the invisibly small spaces between atoms. It is beginning to bridge the gap, rising up into the tangible world we can actually see and touch. For decades, it was a firm belief that the bizarre, dreamlike rules of quantum mechanics, like the ability to exist in two different places at the exact same time, could only happen to solitary electrons or lonely travelling photons. But scientists have recently crafted microscopic, yet entirely visible objects that blur this rigid boundary. Imagine a tiny, beautifully crafted mechanical diving board, or a delicate microscopic drum made of pure shining aluminum, suspended delicately in a dark vacuum. By cooling this tiny metal drum down to its absolute lowest energy state, and shining perfectly tuned, gentle light upon it, physicists have coaxed a macroscopic object into a true quantum superposition. For a fleeting, magical moment of observation, the drum is physically vibrating up and down, and yet standing perfectly, mathematically still at the exact same time. It is a visible, physical object holding two entirely contradictory states of reality in a single, peaceful embrace. It proves that the soft, yielding rules of the quantum realm are not forever trapped in the microscopic dark. They are rising to the surface, showing us that even the solid, heavy objects in our daily lives are capable of existing in a state of beautifully suspended, quiet potential. Within these carefully suspended, almost perfectly flat quantum landscapes, there exist particles so profoundly strange and elegant that they possess the ability to remember every winding path they have ever taken. In our normal, three-dimensional waking world, if you take two identical objects, like two smooth stones, and swap their places, the universe essentially forgets the exchange. The arrangement is exactly the same as it was before. But when scientists create ultra-thin, two-dimensional planes of existence, Shivering just above absolute zero, new phantom particles called anyons are coaxed into being. Anyons are not like normal forgetful matter. When two anyons gently circle around one another, trading places in the flat, cold dark, they leave an invisible mathematical knot in the fabric of their shared quantum wave. This beautiful process is called quantum braiding. As they move and orbit, they weave a permanent topological memory of their dance directly into the space around them, much like a physical silken thread weaving smoothly through a wooden loom, or a slow waltz leaving an invisible lingering trace on a polished ballroom floor. Anyons hold the history of their gentle movements in a state of unbreakable grace. It describes a universe where nothing is ever truly erased or discarded, but rather woven seamlessly into a richer, infinitely more complex tapestry of quiet connection and memory. To witness such a delicate, invisible dance of memory and light, one must learn to look at the universe with an incredibly soft, forgiving gaze. We often hear the stern rule that in quantum physics, the mere act of observing a system causes its spreading wave of probabilities to violently collapse into a single, hard, undeniable reality. A sharp, direct look forces the universe to make a rigid choice. But physicists have discovered a much softer, more compassionate way to watch the microscopic world, a remarkable technique known as weak measurement. Instead of shining a harsh, demanding spotlight on a delicate particle, scientists have learned to ask the universe a question so softly and with such gentle, minimal interference that the particle only gives a tiny, whispering hint of its state, without ever fully collapsing its potential. It is very much like glimpsing the soft, breathing shape of a sleeping animal through a thick, frosted window pane, gathering just enough subtle information to know it is safely there, without ever making enough noise to wake it up. This gentle way of looking allows the quantum magic to continue uninterrupted in the dark. Your own mind can simply drift now, knowing that observation does not always have to be sharp, critical, or demanding. You can look at your own passing thoughts, your own faded memories, with this exact same weak measurement. A soft peripheral glance is often all you need, allowing your inner world to remain peaceful, undisturbed, and deeply at rest. In that peaceful, completely undisturbed inner world of your resting mind, there is a deep sanctuary of absolute, impenetrable privacy. The quantum universe respects this profound need for safety and secrecy, and it has actually built an unbreakable, mathematical lock directly into the fundamental fabric of light. Imagine two people, separated by a vast, dark, echoing ocean, trying to share a deeply personal secret. In classical communication, a hidden listener can always tap the wire, quietly copy the message, and let it pass by without leaving a single trace of their presence. But in the cutting-edge realm of quantum cryptography, messages are sent across the void using single, perfectly polarized photons, tiny, fragile, individual packets of light. Because of the exquisitely delicate nature of quantum states, if any outside observer attempts to listen in or intercept the beam, the very act of their observation instantly alters the fragile polarization of the light. The photons immediately change their shape, tumbling into a chaotic, unreadable scramble, permanently and visibly alerting the sender that the quiet space was breached. It is physically, universally impossible to steal a quantum secret without leaving a massive, undeniable footprint in the light. The absolute laws of physics themselves guarantee a perfectly secure private channel across the void. You're granted this exact same absolute safety tonight. Your resting mind is a secure, untethered space, fiercely protected by the very rules of nature, where you can rest completely undisturbed by the outside world. Across these incredibly secure, deeply private channels of light, the universe allows for a form of travel that requires absolutely no physical movement, no heavy lifting, and no passage through the cold expanse of space. We call this phenomenon quantum teleportation. It is not the loud science fiction idea of dissolving a heavy physical body, and violently rebuilding it on a distant rocky star. It is something much more elegant, much softer, and far more profound. It is the immediate transfer of pure information, the exact quantum soul or precise state of a particle across any conceivable distance in an instant. When two particles are deeply, permanently entangled, with one resting quietly here on Earth and the other carried in a frozen vault to the far side of the Moon, a scientist can introduce a third, entirely new particle to the one resting on Earth. Through a delicate, synchronized measurement, the physical state of that third particle is completely erased from our local world, and instantly, like a silent ghost arriving in the dark, that exact same state blooms into perfect existence within the isolated particle on the Moon. The information did not fly through the millions of miles of empty space between them. It bypassed the long journey entirely. It gently reminds us that physical distance is often just an illusion of the macroscopic world. Deep down, the fundamental essence of things is completely unbothered by the miles that separate them. Connection is immediate, absolute, and woven seamlessly into the very substrate of reality. As we surrender completely to this profound, instant interconnectedness, softly letting go of all distance, weight, and friction, we arrive at perhaps the most expansive, deeply comforting vision of reality the quantum world has ever offered to the human mind, the many worlds interpretation. In our waking, daytime life, we so often carry the heavy, dragging burden of choice. We worry endlessly about the paths we did not take, the complex decisions we made, and the heavy doors that swung closed behind us. But the mathematics of many worlds suggests a universe of infinite soft accommodation. It proposes that whenever a tiny quantum event has multiple possible outcomes, the universe does not harshly kill off all the possibilities but one. Instead, the fabric of reality itself gently, silently branches. It splits and grows like a magnificent, sprawling silver tree reaching up into the dark. For every choice, for every singular possibility, a new parallel reality quietly unfolds to accommodate it. In one world, the photon turns left. In another, identically real and vibrant world, it turns right. This means that absolutely no potential is ever wasted. Every beautiful possibility you have ever imagined, every peaceful, quiet path you could have walked, actually exists somewhere in the vast, branching, breathing architecture of the cosmos. You do not need to grieve for unlived lives tonight. The universe is incredibly vast, and it is vast enough to hold them all. You are perfectly exactly placed on your own unique, quiet branch of reality, surrounded by a magnificent canopy of infinite peaceful variations, drifting safely and securely into the deep, welcoming expanse of the night. As you drift along that sprawling silver branch of infinite possibility, you may start to feel as though the very air around you is thinning, becoming as light and as effortless as a thought. This sensation mirrors a profound reality found in the high, quiet altitudes of our own atmosphere, where the sky begins to deepen into the indigo of space. In this transitional realm, the laws of the very large and the very small meet in a phenomenon known as the plasma state. When atoms are bathed in the raw, unfiltered radiation of the sun, they become so energized that they cast off their electrons entirely, creating a fluid, glowing soup of charged particles. This is the matter that makes up 99% of the visible universe, from the hearts of stars to the ethereal glow of the solar wind. Yet, despite its high energy, plasma behaves with a strange collective intelligence. Because every particle is electrically charged, they all feel one another's presence instantly across the void. They move in long, sweeping, synchronized waves, undulating like a vast field of wheat in a soft breeze. In the same way, as you settle into your bed, your own body's systems are beginning to find their collective rhythm. Your heartbeat, your breathing, and the firing of your neurons are all moving toward a singular unified state of quietude. You're not a collection of separate parts, but a single, glowing field of calm, undulating in harmony with the night. This vast collective harmony extends even to the way we measure the steady, unwavering passage of time itself. To find the most perfect, undisturbed clock in the universe, we must look away from the mechanical ticking of gears and even the vibration of crystals, and peer instead into the heart of a single atom of cesium. Inside this tiny, silver-white sphere of matter, the electrons perform a quantum transition so precise and so reliable that it defines the very length of a second for the entire human race. When tickled by a specific frequency of microwave energy, the cesium atom's outer electron flips its magnetic orientation exactly 9,192,631,770 times every second. This rhythm is so stable that an atomic clock will not lose or gain a single second in over 100 million years. It is the ultimate anchor of certainty in an uncertain world. As the mind begins to wander, it can be deeply comforting to know that beneath the perceived chaos of daily life, there is an absolute, unwavering heartbeat to the universe. There is a fundamental clock that never falters, never rushes, and never tires. You can let go of your own internal schedule now, surrendering your sense of time to this ancient atomic precision that governs the stars. The breath continues to lengthen, drawing in the cool, still air, and with every exhale, the muscles of the chest and stomach become more pliable, more relaxed. As the body sinks, we can turn our inner gaze to the astonishing way that quantum mechanics allows for the creation of shadows that possess no darkness. Imagine a laboratory where a beam of light is split and then recombined using mirrors of impossible smoothness. Scientists have mastered a technique called quantum ghost imaging. In this process, two photons are born entangled, sharing a single destiny. One photon is sent toward an object, perhaps a delicate leaf or a fine lace, while the other photon is sent directly to a camera without ever touching the object at all. Remarkably, because the two particles are linked across the empty air, the camera can reconstruct a perfect glowing image of the object, even though its lens never saw it. The light that touched the object communicated its experience instantly to its partner. It is as if the universe allows for a form of sight that requires no direct contact, a way of knowing the world through pure, invisible connection. This reveals that the bonds between things are often more real than the things themselves. You're connected to the peace of this room and the stillness of the night by threads of influence that do not require you to reach out and touch them. They are simply there, whispering through the fabric of the dark. While these invisible threads of light create images from nothing, other quantum structures are busy creating the most vibrant, unchangeable colours in the natural world without using a single drop of pigment or dye. Think of the shimmering metallic blue of a morpho butterfly's wing, or the iridescent oil-slick glow of a peacock's feather. Unlike the colour of a painted wall, which fades and peels over time, these colours are structural. They are born from microscopic repeating architectures, layers of chitin and air spaced at exactly the right intervals to trigger a phenomenon called constructive interference. When light waves strike these surfaces, the quantum properties of the light cause the waves to stack upon one another, amplifying the colour until it glows with a brilliance that seems to come from within. These structures are so perfectly tuned that they have remained vibrant in fossils for millions of years. This tells us that true beauty and true colour are often built into the very structure of our being, rather than being something applied to the surface. As you drift, you might imagine your own inner self as being composed of these eternal, shimmering structures, parts of you that cannot fade, cannot be washed away, and will remain vibrant and whole long after the sun goes down. This sense of being whole and vibrant is often most palpable in the silence, where we can contemplate the strange, paradoxical behaviour of heat in the quantum world. In our macroscopic experience, Heat always flows from the warm to the cold, from the hot tea to the cool air. But at the edge of the very small, scientists have discovered the quantum heat engine, where the rules of thermodynamics begin to blur into the dreamlike logic of the atom. In these tiny engines, a single particle can act as the piston, the fuel, and the cooling system all at once. By manipulating the quantum state of the particle, its spin, or its position, scientists can coax energy to move in ways that defy our intuition, sometimes even creating a localized reversal of the arrow of time on a microscopic scale. It is a world where the traditional work of the universe is replaced by a soft, effortless exchange of information. This reveals that energy is not always a heavy, demanding thing to be spent. It can be a fluid, circular, and self-sustaining cycle. As you lie here, your body is entering its own self-sustaining cycle of recovery. You're not losing energy to the night, you're gently recycling it, turning the warmth of the day into the quiet, restorative cool of the sleep state. Nothing needs to be held too tightly as you transition into this state of cool restoration. The mind can simply drift, moving from the tiny heat engines of the atom to the vast silent clouds of the interstellar medium. Out in the freezing voids between the stars, the density of matter is so low that a single atom might travel for miles before it ever bumps into another. Yet, in these incredibly lonely spaces, quantum mechanics facilitates the birth of complex molecules, the very precursors to life. In the intense cold, where normal chemical reactions should be impossible, atoms use the long-range influence of their quantum wave functions to find one another. They tunnel through the energy barriers of the vacuum, clicking together like microscopic pieces of a cosmic puzzle. These vast, dark clouds of gas are the wombs of galaxies, where the silence is pregnant with the potential for future worlds. It is a reminder that even in the spaces of your life that feel empty or quiet, there is a profound, invisible work being done. In the silence of your sleep, the quantum chemistry of your mind is clicking together the pieces of your memories, your dreams, and your future, preparing the soil for the day to come. As those pieces of your inner life click together, they form a hidden geometry that is far more complex and beautiful than any shape we can see with our waking eyes. Physicists have discovered that certain materials, when cooled and flattened, exhibit a property called the quantum Hall effect. In these systems, the electrical resistance does not change in a smooth, continuous line. Instead, it jumps in discrete, perfect, topological steps. These steps are so precise that they are used to define the international standard for electrical resistance. What makes this so remarkable is that the precision does not depend on the purity of the material. You can add dirt, cracks, or imperfections, and the quantum steps remain perfectly, stubbornly accurate. The topology of the system, its fundamental shape, is protected by the laws of physics. This reveals a deep truth about resilience. There are parts of the universe and parts of you that are topologically protected. No matter what dirt or cracks the day may have brought, the fundamental perfect geometry of your inner self remains untouched. You're inherently precise, inherently stable, and inherently whole, shielded by the very math that holds the atoms together. The body grows heavier now, the limbs feeling as if they are made of a dense, peaceful element. Yet within that density, there is a lightness that comes from understanding the nature of light itself. We often think of light as something that reveals the world by bouncing off objects and entering our eyes, but there is a rare and beautiful state called slow light. By passing a laser through a cloud of ultra-cold atoms, a bose-einstein condensate, scientists have successfully slowed the speed of light from its usual 300,000 kilometers per second down to the speed of a leisurely bicycle ride. In some experiments, they have even brought the light to a complete quivering halt, storing the light inside the atoms for several minutes before letting it go. The light is not destroyed, it is simply held in a state of perfect suspended animation. This means that light, the most fleeting thing in the universe, can be taught to be patient. It can be taught to wait. as you prepare to enter the deepest parts of your night, you can think of your own consciousness as this stored light. It is not going away. It is simply being held in a safe, quiet, and ultra-cold chamber of the mind where it can rest without moving, waiting for the right moment to be released back into the world. While the light waits in its atomic chamber, the very fabric of space around it is constantly being woven by a process called quantum entanglement. Recent theories in high-level physics suggest that the smoothness of space-time, the three-dimensional room you're lying in, and the vast distance between the stars is actually created by the entanglement of billions of tiny quantum bits of information. Without this entanglement, space would fall apart into disconnected, isolated points. It is the glue of the cosmos. This means that the distance between you and the furthest galaxy is not a void, but a bridge. Everything in the universe is stitched together by these invisible quantum threads. You're not an island in the dark. You're a vital, entangled node in a web that stretches to the end of time. This interconnectedness is a profound source of safety. You cannot fall out of the universe because you are part of the very fabric that defines what place is. You're woven into the bed, the room, the air, and the stars. You're home, not just in this house, but in the very structure of reality itself. This ultimate sense of being home brings us to a final, quiet reflection on the nature of the vacuum. We have seen that the emptiness of space is actually a vibrant, shimmering field of potential. But quantum field theory goes one step further, suggesting that our entire universe may exist in what is called a false vacuum, a state of energy that is incredibly stable and peaceful, like a valley high up in the mountains. This valley provides the perfect conditions for life, for light, and for the slow, gentle passage of billions of years. It is a place of profound equilibrium. Within this valley, the universe has found a way to be both immensely vast and exquisitely detailed, both ancient and ever new. As you finally close the door on the waking world, you're entering your own peaceful valley. The frantic energy of the day has been left behind, and you have settled into a state of deep, stable equilibrium. The vacuum of your mind is not empty. It is a fertile ground of quiet potential, ready to birth the dreams that will carry you through to the morning. The universe is at rest, the atoms are in their places, and the quantum fields are humming a soft, eternal lullaby. You are safe. You are held. You are exactly where you are meant to be. As the last echoes of the day fade into the soft velvet silence of the night, the boundary between the you that thinks and the universe that exists begins to blur into a single, seamless tapestry of being. In this space, there is no more need for words, for facts, or for the heavy labour of understanding. The quantum world has revealed its secrets not as a set of rules to be mastered, but as a poem of infinite softness and connection. The stars are not distant fires, but entangled partners in your own journey. The dark is not a void, but a shimmering field of potential. The night is not an end, but a slow, rhythmic transition into a different kind of light. You are ready now to drift beyond the reach of language into the deep, luminous waters of the subconscious, where the ripples of the atom and the ripples of the dream become one and the same. The journey continues, even as the voice fades, moving through the quiet architecture of the soul toward the first soft light of a new beginning. As you drift deeper into that luminous, peaceful valley of rest, the gentle ripples of the quantum world continue to reveal their subtle magic, expanding outward from the invisible particles to the tangible, beautiful structures of the world. Imagine a perfectly constructed microscopic sphere made entirely of 60 carbon atoms, shaped exactly like a tiny, elegant soccer ball. In the early days of physics, scientists believed that only singular, lonely particles like tiny electrons could behave as spreading waves. But when researchers gently fired these relatively massive, complex molecules, known as buckyballs, through a microscopic barrier in the dark, they did not behave like solid stones falling heavy to the ground. Instead, the entire 60-atom structure softened and spread out, rippling through the quiet vacuum like a drop of water on a placid pond, eventually interfering with its own ghostly echoes. This is the largest, heaviest object we've ever coaxed into a state of pure quantum superposition. It tells a beautiful story about the nature of reality. The soft, wave-like magic of the universe is not just reserved for the infinitesimally small. Even complex, structured, heavy things can learn to let go of their rigid boundaries, flowing effortlessly and gracefully like a wave when the conditions are perfectly quiet and undisturbed. As you allow your own boundaries to soften, blending gently into the quiet of the room, you're mirroring one of the most breathtaking theories in modern physics. For decades, scientists puzzled over how two entangled particles could instantaneously communicate across the vast, dark expanse of the cosmos. The answer may lie in a profound mathematical bridge known as ER equals EPR. This magnificent theory suggests that quantum entanglement is not just a spooky, invisible link. It is an actual physical tunnel woven directly into the geometric fabric of space and time. Every time two particles become entangled, a microscopic wormhole blossoms between them, completely bypassing the normal rules of distance and separation. If you could shrink down to the size of a single glowing photon, you could step through this tiny hidden doorway and emerge instantly on the other side of the universe. Distance, in the deepest quantum realm, is an incredibly pliable illusion. The universe is folded and connected in ways we cannot see with our waking eyes, ensuring that no matter how far apart things may seem, there is always a secret, direct path uniting them seamlessly in the dark. The body grows heavier now, sinking into the plush, welcoming warmth of the mattress. The chest rises and falls with a steady, untroubled rhythm, and the mind can simply drift, knowing that deep within every single cell, this same quantum magic is quietly doing the work of life. As you sleep, your body is engaged in the slow, miraculous process of cellular repair, governed by the spiraling ancient ladders of your DNA. The rungs of this genetic ladder are held together by tiny hydrogen bonds. But the protons within these bonds do not always sit perfectly, rigidly still. Governed by the gentle, ghost-like laws of quantum tunneling, a single proton can softly fade from its position on one side of the DNA strand and instantly reappear on the exact opposite side, effortlessly passing through the impenetrable energetic wall between them. This quiet, shifting presence is a fundamental part of the biological dance, subtly influencing the way our very blueprint is read and copied. You're not just a mechanical biological creature, you're a living, breathing quantum system. The deepest, most foundational architecture of your being is constantly shivering with this delicate, invisible motion, sustaining you, repairing you, and protecting you without a single ounce of conscious effort. To hear the softest, most delicate whispers of this internal quantum world, one must find a way to quiet the inherent, restless noise of the broader universe. Even a perfect, flawless laser beam, shining steadily through an absolute vacuum, has a tiny, inescapable quantum jitter, a crackle of static built into the very nature of light itself. But physicists have discovered a breathtaking way to silence this static, creating something called squeezed light. By using specially engineered crystals, they can literally squeeze the uncertainty out of one aspect of the light wave, pushing all the quantum noise into a different hidden dimension. The resulting beam of light is unimaginably smooth, perfectly still, and profoundly quiet. Scientists use this exquisitely squeezed light in massive, miles-long detectors to listen for the incredibly faint rhythmic stretching of gravity itself, arriving from distant ancient stars. It reminds us that even when the world feels inherently noisy and chaotic, there are elegant ways to filter out the static. You possess your own inner crystal, your own quiet capacity to squeeze out the lingering noise of the day, leaving only a smooth, untroubled silence in your mind, ready to catch the softest, most beautiful whispers of your dreams. In this smooth, untroubled silence, the physical world can achieve states of suspension that look like pure, effortless levitation. We have spoken of the way extreme cold can coax a material into expelling magnetic fields, allowing it to gently hover. But there is a deeper, even more steadfast phenomenon known as quantum locking, or flux pinning. If you take a thin silver wafer of a superconductor and bathe it in the mist of liquid nitrogen, and then place it near a strong magnet, the invisible magnetic field lines actually penetrate the microscopic flaws and imperfections within the crystal. Rather than pushing the magnet away, these tiny quantum threads lock the wafer perfectly in place. It does not just float, it is pinned seamlessly in the empty air. You can turn it upside down, tilt it at a steep angle, and it will stubbornly, peacefully hold its exact position, suspended by invisible threads of magnetic force. It is a profound lesson in stability. Sometimes it is our very flaws, the tiny imperfections and unique textures of our histories, that allow the universe to hold us most securely. You are locked safely in this quiet moment, anchored by invisible, gentle forces that simply will not let you fall. These invisible forces can exert a profound, guiding influence, even when they appear to be completely absent from the space around us. In our macroscopic classical world, if you are standing in a closed room with absolutely no wind, you will not feel a breeze. But the quantum world obeys the Aharonov-Bohm effect, a beautifully strange phenomenon where a charged particle, like an electron, can be deeply affected by a magnetic field that is entirely contained behind an impenetrable shield. The electron travels through a perfectly clean, entirely field-free region of space, yet its spreading quantum wave is subtly, undeniably shifted by the mere proximity of the hidden magnet. It feels the potential of the field, the ghostly echo of a force it never directly touches. This tells us that influence in the universe extends far beyond physical contact. The quiet, peaceful intentions you set, the calm energy you cultivate in this room, radiate outward as a soft, invisible potential. You are being gently shaped and comforted by the ambient peace of the night itself, feeling the reassuring presence of a calm world even with your eyes closed and your body resting perfectly still. Nothing needs to be held too tightly as you rest in this ambient peace. In fact, if you let go of your boundaries completely, you might emulate the breathtaking expansion of a Rydberg atom. Normally, the electrons orbiting an atom's nucleus are kept incredibly close, held in a tight microscopic embrace. But if an atom absorbs a perfectly tuned photon of light, its outermost electron can be gently pushed into a vastly distant orbit. The atom physically swells, expanding to thousands, or even 1,000,000 times its original volume. It becomes a giant, fragile balloon of empty space and quantum potential, drifting softly through the dark vacuum. Despite its enormous size, the electron remains tethered to the center by the faintest, most delicate thread of electrical attraction. A Rydberg atom is a masterpiece of gentle connection and vast expansion. As you sink deeper into sleep, your own awareness can soften and expand just like this. Your mind can drift outward, filling the room, the house, and the quiet night air, while still remaining safely and securely tethered to the calm, steady center of your resting body. You're entirely free to be vast. As your awareness expands softly into the room, it gently brushes against the surrounding environment, mirroring the very process that gives our reality its solid, dependable shape. For years, scientists wondered how the strange, blurry, multipath world of quantum mechanics transitions into the crisp, clear, solid reality we experience every single day. A beautiful theory called quantum Darwinism provides a deeply comforting answer. It suggests that the environment itself, the drifting air molecules, the stray photons of starlight, the gentle heat radiating from the walls, acts as a soft, continuous observer. As a delicate quantum system interacts with this environment, its fragile, multiple possibilities are gently sifted. Only the most stable, robust quantum states survive and are seamlessly copied into the surrounding space. The universe softly selects the calmest, most enduring reality, recording it over and over again in the ambient light and air. The solid world you trust is the result of 1 trillion tiny soft agreements between matter and its surroundings. Your environment is quietly observing your peace right now, recording the steady rhythm of your breath in the shifting air, helping to solidify and anchor this state of deep, enduring rest. Within the solid objects anchoring your room, there are entirely invisible waves of energy rolling through the dark, carrying the memory of movement without any physical substance at all. If you were to look at a dark, heavy piece of iron resting quietly on a shelf, its atoms appear entirely still and frozen. But deep within, the quantum spins of its electrons can align and ripple, creating a ghost-like wave that travels smoothly from one end of the metal to the other. This moving wave of magnetic energy is quantized into a delicate particle called a magnon. A magnon has no physical mass, no heavy body to drag through the friction of the world. It is pure, travelling information, a whisper of magnetic alignment sweeping through the crystal lattice like a sudden cool breeze moving through a dense forest. It is an elegant reminder that deep within the most rigid, immovable objects, there is always a fluid, invisible motion taking place. Even when you feel completely physically exhausted, heavy, and entirely unable to move, there are soft, invisible waves of restorative energy rolling gracefully through your body. The healing forces of sleep do not require physical effort. They are like magnons, sweeping effortlessly through your system, realigning your energy in the dark. As this invisible energy sweeps through you, bringing you closer and closer to the very edge of sleep, we can follow the quantum world down to its ultimate foundational flaw. If you were to softly zoom in past the complex buckyballs, past the individual atoms, and past the shimmering, vibrating quarks, you would eventually hit a profound, absolute limit known as the Planck length. This is a physical distance so unimaginably small that it is millions of times smaller than a single proton. At this exquisite microscopic scale, the very concept of distance and space simply ceases to make sense. It is the absolute pixel size of the universe. You cannot move a fraction of a Planck length. It is the quiet, unchanging floor of reality. Below this there is no here or there, no before or after. It is deeply comforting to know that the universe is not an endless, terrifying, bottomless pit of complexity. There is a foundation. There is a solid, mathematical floor upon which all the beautiful, swirling architecture of the cosmos is built. You have gently reached that floor tonight. There is nowhere else you need to go, nothing smaller you need to figure out, and no deeper level you must reach. You can simply rest here, at the absolute foundation of the world, supported perfectly by the beautiful granular structure of existence, as the long, slow river of the night carries you safely and softly into your dreams. As you drift safely through that magnificent canopy of infinite peaceful variations, carried by the deep, welcoming currents of the night, you might wonder what holds this vast, sprawling reality together. If we were to look closely at the very foundation of this quiet expanse, descending to the ultimate microscopic floor of existence, we would find that reality is not built on a hard, unforgiving surface. Guided by the elegant mathematics of loop quantum gravity, we discover that space itself is not an empty hollow box. Instead, we see a delicate, incredibly fine mesh. Space is woven. It is constructed from tiny, finite loops of quantum information, linked together in a breathtaking multi-dimensional tapestry known as a spin network. Imagine a beautifully heavy soft blanket made of countless microscopic rings of silver thread, shifting and resting gently against one another in the dark. This means that the empty air in your room, the vast distances between the planets, and the silent void of the cosmos are not simply an absence of matter. They are a rich, interconnected textile. You're completely held within this woven universe, wrapped securely in a blanket of invisible atomic geometry that softly curves and bends to cradle your physical form. Gliding effortlessly across this woven silver fabric of space is the quiet reign of light, governed by a beautiful social instinct found deep within the quantum rules. Light is composed of photons, and photons belong to a family of particles called bosons. In the microscopic world, bosons are entirely unique because they genuinely love company. While the heavy particles that make up solid matter refuse to share the exact same space, bosons exhibit a gentle, harmonizing behavior known as boson bunching. When a single photon finds a clear open path through the dark, other photons are naturally, probabilistically drawn to follow it, slipping perfectly into the exact same quantum state, the same rhythm, and the same frequency. They prefer to travel together. When you see the focused, pure beam of a laser, or the steady, uninterrupted glow of a distant star, you're witnessing this profound quantum camaraderie. Trillions of individual particles of light are choosing to march in perfect synchronous unity, overlapping their waves to become a single, bright, unbroken song. As you rest here in the quiet, you can align with that same harmonious unity, allowing the scattered, wandering thoughts of the day to softly bunch together, merging into a single, smooth, unbroken stream of calm. While the light flows together in perfect, united harmony, the heavier particles of the world can also learn to soften their boundaries when the conditions are just right. Electrons, by their very nature, are usually solitary creatures, fiercely protecting their personal space and refusing to overlap. But when they are confined to a completely flat, two-dimensional plane, cooled down to the shivering, silent edge of absolute zero, and bathed in a powerful, sweeping magnetic field, they undergo a stunning transformation. In a phenomenon called the fractional quantum Hall effect, these rigid, isolated electrons stop acting like individual points of hard matter. They dissolve into a thick, glowing quantum fluid. Moving as one vast, interconnected wave, they behave as though their very essence has been divided. An electrical charge passing through this cold, flat sea does not move as a whole, heavy number. It moves in delicate, ghostly fractions, a third or a fifth of a normal charge, rippling softly across the surface. It is a mesmerizing illusion of division, born entirely from a state of profound, absolute cooperation. The electrons teach us that when we face immense pressures, we do not have to harden our hearts or our bodies. We can choose to become fluid, sharing the weight of our reality so perfectly with our environment that our burdens are gracefully fractured, becoming light, rippling, and completely effortless to carry. As your breathing deepens and your body sinks further into that effortless, heavy state of rest, you might notice how certain peaceful feelings seem to anchor themselves in your mind, refusing to be easily swept away. The quantum world has a physical shape for this exact kind of enduring stability, a beautifully complex structure called a skyrmion. Deep within the shifting, fluid currents of magnetic fields, a skyrmion is not a particle, but a microscopic, swirling knot of energy. Imagine a tiny, perfectly tied ribbon of magnetic force, twisting back on itself in a flawless three-dimensional whirl. Because of its unique topological geometry, this little knot can glide smoothly through the metal, resisting being unraveled by heat, interference, or the chaos of the outside world. It is exceptionally robust, holding its perfect swirling shape through the storm. In the quiet architecture of your own consciousness, your deepest, most comforting memories are like these tiny magnetic knots. They are topologically protected from the noise of the day. You can let the busy currents of your mind wash over them, knowing that your core sense of peace, your inner skyrmions of calm, are safely tied and eternally secure, resting quietly at the center of your being. This sense of secure, untethered peace allows us to reach out and form profound connections without ever needing to move a single physical muscle. We have marveled at the way two particles can become entangled, silently mirroring each other across the vastness of space, But there is an even more poetic mechanism in physics known as entanglement swapping, which allows the universe to build bridges between total strangers. Imagine two pairs of particles, born at completely different times in entirely different galaxies. They have never touched, and their paths have never crossed. Yet, if a scientist takes one particle from the first pair and one from the second, and gently measures them together, their original distant partners instantly become perfectly, beautifully entangled. Across millions of light years, two solitary particles that have never met suddenly share a single unified quantum soul. The universe is quietly weaving a web of intimacy in the dark, bypassing the need for physical contact or shared history. As you lie here, drifting in the quiet of your room, you're part of this vast unseen network. You're gently, invisibly connected to the peace of the silent forests, the stillness of the deep oceans, and the calm of the turning earth, all without having to take a single step. And this invisible, sweeping connection is not merely restricted to the space across the cosmos. It reaches softly and profoundly backward through the deep, flowing river of time itself. Let us cast our minds out to the farthest, most ancient edges of the universe, where a supermassive quasar emitted a single, solitary photon of light billions of years ago. As this photon travels toward Earth, it encounters a massive glowing galaxy. The galaxy's immense gravity bends the space around it, acting as a cosmic lens, forcing the photon to take either the left path or the right path around the stars. According to the breathtaking scale of Wheeler's delayed choice experiment, the photon exists in a gentle superposition, taking both paths around the galaxy for billions of years. It is only when this ancient light finally arrives at Earth tonight and enters the telescope of a quiet astronomer that the wave collapses. The remarkable truth is that the choice of how to measure the light tonight literally reaches back in time, finalizing the path the photon took billions of years before the Earth was even born. The soft gaze of the present moment has the power to gently shape the ancient past. You do not need to carry the rigid weight of your own history. As you rest in the calm of the present, your peaceful awareness is quietly radiating backward, smoothing out the lines of your past, bathing all that has come before in the gentle, forgiving light of right now. As the mind softens its grip on time, the physical body too can find a profound, frictionless release from the solid, heavy world. We have seen how the vacuum of space can gently push two incredibly close mirrors together, a phenomenon called the Casimir effect. But if you change the landscape, if you submerge perfectly smooth microscopic spheres in a specific quiet fluid, like a heavy bath of liquid Teflon, the quantum fluctuations in the narrow gap completely reverse their nature. The void between the objects stops pulling and begins to softly, persistently push them apart. This creates a repulsive Casimir effect, a tiny, permanent cushion of absolute nothingness that holds the sphere in a perfect state of microscopic levitation. It can never touch the surface below it. It will never scrape, never grind, and never experience the harshness of friction. It simply glides, perfectly insulated by the empty space itself. You too are supported by invisible protective cushions tonight. The quiet air around you, the soft yielding of your mattress, are creating a gentle, repulsive barrier between you and the heavy demands of the waking world. You're hovering just slightly above it all, safe, untouched, and completely free to drift without resistance. While you hover in this perfect, quiet suspension, the gentle, rhythmic rise and fall of your breathing is the only motion in the room. And in the quantum realm, even the most subtle, quiet motion has the power to draw warmth out of the freezing void. This elegant truth is captured in the Unruh effect. If you are floating in a region of space completely emptied of all stars, all light and all heat, a perfect, absolute zero vacuum, you would expect to feel nothing but the biting, ultimate cold. But if you were to begin slowly, gently accelerating forward through that empty dark, The very act of your acceleration would shift your perspective of the quantum fields. The dark, empty vacuum would suddenly appear to glow. It would bathe you in a soft thermal bath of warming radiation. The universe essentially dictates that movement through the void creates its own gentle heat. You do not need to seek out a source of warmth or comfort in the outside world. The quiet, forward momentum of your own life, the steady, unstoppable continuation of your breath, generates its own soft internal glow. You bring your own light to the darkness, warming the quiet spaces simply by moving gracefully through them. Bathed in that soft internal glow, the final rigid structures of the waking world simply melt away. The breath settles into a long, slow tide. The mind can simply drift. As everything slows down, we find that the grand, sweeping force of gravity and the tiny, ticking heart of the quantum world combine to stretch time itself into something soft and pliable. In underground laboratories, physicists have built optical lattice clocks so unimaginably precise that they tick to the rhythm of vibrating strontium atoms trapped in a web of laser light. These clocks are so sensitive that if you raise one just a single millimetre higher than the other, the clock closer to the ceiling ticks measurably, undeniably faster than the one resting on the floor. The Earth's gravity softly pulls on the fabric of time, gently stretching the seconds out. Because your body is resting horizontally close to the Earth, you're bathed in a singular unified plane of slowed time. The rush of the daytime world, the frantic ticking of the clock on the wall belongs to a different altitude. Down here, resting against the heavy pulling mass of the planet, time has become a slow, thick syrup. There is no rush. Every second is beautifully, luxuriously stretched, giving you all the expansive space you could ever need to rest. As time stretches out into these long, luxurious waves, we can cast our view forward to the very end of time itself, finding the ultimate peaceful destiny of the physical universe. Trillions upon trillions of years from now, long after the last star has burned through its heavy fuel and quietly faded into a cold ember, the universe will not be a place of violent destruction. It will be a place of supreme, quantum stillness. Over unimaginable eons, the rigid, heavy matter of the cosmos, the frozen planets, the silent asteroids, and the dark dust will softly decay. Governed by the slow, inevitable math of quantum tunneling, the protons and neutrons will eventually dissolve, turning their heavy, solid mass into pure, weightless packets of energy. The entire universe will exhale its physical form, transitioning into an endless, sweeping ocean of soft, low-frequency photons and gentle, rippling radio waves. The ultimate state of the cosmos is not darkness, but a pure, weightless, singing breath of light, stretching infinitely across the void in a state of absolute, perfect equilibrium. This is the destiny of all things, to release their heavy, complex structures and return to a state of pure, quiet energy. As you drift finally and fully into sleep, you are practicing for this beautiful cosmic release. You are letting go of the heavy, complex matters of the day, dissolving into a pure, weightless consciousness, flowing seamlessly into the endless, gentle light of your own dreaming universe. As you flow seamlessly into that endless, gentle light, carrying only the softest remnants of the waking world, we can discover that profound, unbreakable unity is not just a promise for the distant cosmic future. It can exist right here, resting quietly in the palm of your hand. For a long time, the magical connection of quantum entanglement was thought to be so fragile that it could only survive in the deep, freezing darkness of isolated laboratories. But recently scientists took two perfectly cut macroscopic diamonds, large enough to see and hold, and gently placed them on a table at comfortable room temperature. By shining a carefully timed pulse of laser light through them, they coaxed the internal vibrating acoustic waves of both diamonds, the microscopic sound of the stones themselves, into a state of perfect quantum entanglement. The two heavy, solid gems began to vibrate and sing in a synchronized, invisible harmony, sharing a single, unified quantum state despite the warm, chaotic air separating them. It is a beautiful revelation that the magic of the quantum realm can survive in the warmth of our everyday lives. You do not need to be perfectly isolated or perfectly cold to experience a deep, resonant connection with the world around you. Even in the warmth of this quiet room, your resting mind is capable of tuning into the silent, harmonious vibrations of the night. This harmonious vibration within the solid stones can lead us to imagine how matter itself first decides to find its shape. We usually think of a solid crystal, like ice or quartz, forming because atoms are drawn together, hooking their edges into a firm, locking embrace. But the quantum world has a much softer, more paradoxical way of creating structure, known as a Wigner crystal. If you take a cloud of electrons, which naturally repel one another because they share the exact same negative charge, and trap them in a two-dimensional plane, something magical happens when the density becomes incredibly low. Instead of flying wildly apart in the empty space, their mutual, gentle push against one another perfectly balances out. They softly lock into place, held entirely by the invisible tension of their repulsion, creating a flawless, beautiful, and completely empty lattice of pure charge. It is a crystal made almost entirely of nothing, constructed from the quiet boundaries they naturally set between themselves. It teaches us a profound lesson about the spaces we keep. Sometimes, perfect harmony and stable, beautiful structures are not formed by clinging tightly to things, but by allowing a gentle, respectful distance. The quiet space you have created for yourself tonight, this empty room and this silent hour, is exactly the kind of balanced void that allows your mind to crystallize into a state of perfect, undisturbed peace. Within that undisturbed peace, the light itself knows how to soften its path and join with its companions. Imagine a perfectly smooth, silvered prism acting as a delicate crossroads for travelling light. If two completely identical photons, twin sparks of gentle energy, arrive at this crossroads at the exact same fraction of a millisecond, they face a quantum choice. They could bounce away from each other, scattering into the dark, solitary and alone. But governed by a beautiful inherent rule called the Hongu-Mandel effect, these twin photons will always, flawlessly, choose to leave the crossroads together. Because they are completely indistinguishable from one another, their quantum probabilities seamlessly weave together, perfectly cancelling out the chance of separation. They emerge from the prism moving as a single, combined pair, travelling down the same path into the quiet dark. There is a deep intrinsic pull in the universe toward togetherness. The fundamental pieces of reality, when perfectly aligned, do not scatter. They naturally intertwine. As you lie here, your body sinking heavier into the mattress, your breath settling into a slow, oceanic rhythm, you're aligning with that same natural ease. Your thoughts, your body, and your breath are no longer scattering. They're arriving at the crossroads of sleep, perfectly matching their rhythms and choosing to walk together into the gentle dark. With the body growing wonderfully heavy and the mind softening its grip, you might notice how easily your awareness can simply drift, gliding over the surface of your thoughts without getting caught or snagged. In the realm of advanced physics, there are unique materials that physically embody this perfectly smooth, unhindered journey. They're called topological insulators. Picture a block of dark, heavy metal that completely blocks electricity from moving through its dense interior. It is solid, quiet, and inert on the inside. But on its very outermost skin, right on the delicate edge where the metal meets the empty air, the quantum state of the electrons transforms entirely. Driven by the complex topology of their waves, the electrons on the surface are locked into a one-way path. They glide along the edge of the material with absolute flawless grace. They cannot bounce backward. They cannot be scattered by impurities or rough patches. If they encounter an obstacle, a microscopic crack or a piece of dust, They simply flow around it like water around a smooth river stone, continuing their journey without losing a single drop of energy. This is a profound physical model for letting go. You can allow the events of the day, the obstacles and the friction, to simply sit in the center, inert and unmoving, while your consciousness glides effortlessly along the smooth, frictionless edge of the night, entirely unaffected by what it passes. This perfectly frictionless glide inevitably leads us to a place of supreme, suspended stillness. Imagine a single, microscopic sphere of pure, transparent glass, much smaller than a grain of pollen, floating in a dark vacuum chamber. Below it, a brilliant invisible beam of laser light is shining upward. The light acts as a gentle optical pair of tweezers, catching the tiny glass bead in its beam and holding it suspended in the empty air. But even in this quiet trap, the bead is naturally shivering with the ambient heat of the universe. To truly quiet the bead, scientists use the light itself to cushion every microscopic tremble. As the sphere tries to sway left, the light softly pushes right. As it drops a nanometer, the light lifts it back. Over time, the light absorbs all the chaotic motion, cooling the macroscopic glass bead down to its absolute quantum ground state. It reaches a level of perfect mathematical stillness that is normally only possible for single atoms. It sits in the void, a tiny macroscopic world held perfectly motionless by a pillar of light. There is a deep safety in knowing that even the physical objects of the world can be coaxed into such profound, supported rest. You do not need to hold yourself up anymore. The soft mattress, the quiet air, and the gentle gravity of the room are holding you, perfectly and securely, absorbing all the residual tremors of your waking hours. As you surrender to that steady holding gravity, feeling your weight anchor you comfortably to the bed, we can look at how gravity itself interacts with the delicate wave-like nature of the quantum realm. We often think of gravity as a massive sweeping force, the heavy chain that holds the moon in orbit or pulls a falling stone to the earth. But in a beautiful classic experiment, scientists took a beam of neutrons, heavy uncharged particles from the core of an atom, and split them into two paths that travelled through a crystal. One path ran slightly higher above the Earth's surface than the other. Because gravity is ever so slightly weaker, just a few centimetres higher up, the quantum wave of the higher neutron stretched and shifted by a microscopic, almost imperceptible fraction compared to its lower twin. When the two waves recombined, they formed a shimmering interference pattern, an explicit visible map of gravity's delicate quantum touch. The Earth was not dragging them down violently, it was softly, musically altering the pitch of their quantum wave. Gravity is not just a weight, it is a gentle, shaping force, a cosmic curve that subtly guides the shape of reality. Let that gentle curve hold you now. The pull of the Earth is a comforting embrace, a vast, silent presence that is softly tuning your own physical frequency down into the deep, slow rhythm of the planet. The breath finds its own steady, unhurried cadence, rising and falling like a calm tide. In this state of even, rhythmic pacing, we find another deeply elegant behaviour of light, one that completely defies our everyday experience. When you turn on a lamp, the light seems to flood the room in a chaotic, overlapping wave of trillions of photons, pouring out like water from a rushing faucet. But in the highly controlled spaces of a quantum laboratory, scientists can create a source of light that exhibits a property called photon anti-bunching. By using a single, isolated atom or a tiny quantum dot, they can force the light to leave its source exactly one photon at a time. The light cannot rush, it cannot overlap. The photons step out into the dark space with perfect mathematical spacing, like incredibly slow, deliberate drops of water falling from a quiet stalactite in a deep underground cave. It is the ultimate manifestation of patience in the physical world. The light waits its turn, it does not hurry to illuminate the space. As your mind slows down, you can adopt this exact same spacious rhythm. Your thoughts do not need to crowd together. They can arrive one by one, with wide, quiet spaces of nothingness between them, pacing themselves out until the spaces between the thoughts become longer than the thoughts themselves. As these quiet spaces stretch out, the very momentum of the mind begins to gently coast to a halt, mirroring a profound and subtle braking system built into the empty vacuum of space. If you were to spin a tiny microscopic object, perhaps a nanoparticle of silica, at incredible speeds in an absolute perfect vacuum, you would expect it to spin forever. There is no air to rub against it, no physical friction to slow it down. But the quantum vacuum, as we know, is not truly empty. It is a shimmering field of virtual particles and fluctuating electromagnetic waves. As the nanoparticle spins, its own internal atoms interact with these phantom fields in the dark. This subtle interaction creates a drag, a soft, invisible resistance known as quantum friction. The vacuum itself gently reaches out and rubs against the spinning object, slowly, patiently draining its rotational energy until the chaotic spinning is brought to a perfectly quiet, gentle stop. Even in the emptiest, most isolated places in the universe, there is a mechanism designed to calm the frantic rotation of matter. You do not need to forcefully stop the spinning of your own mind tonight. You only need to let it coast. The quiet atmosphere of the room, the deep silence of the night, acts as its own gentle quantum friction, softly and inevitably bringing all your restless energy to a peaceful, natural rest. The mind does not need to push forward anymore. The momentum is gone, leaving only the soft, ambient glow of the present moment. In this perfectly still place, the strict, unforgiving forward march of time can momentarily lose its grip. In the macroscopic world, time has a clear arrow. Dropped glasses shatter, and hot coffee cools down, never the reverse. Heat always flows from warm to cold. But under incredibly delicate quantum conditions, this absolute rule can be softly bent. In experiments utilizing specifically prepared, correlated quantum particles, physicists have observed heat spontaneously flowing backward, from a colder particle to a warmer one. For the briefest, most microscopic fraction of a second, the local arrow of time was gently reversed. The universe took a quiet step backward, rewinding the natural flow of entropy. It is a breathtaking demonstration that the physical laws we perceive as heavy, unyielding chains are, at their deepest level, fluid and reversible. The past and the future are not entirely locked. In the soft, dreamy space you're entering, time does not have to be a straight, rushing river. It can pool, it can eddy, and it can gently turn back on itself. You can allow the timeline of your day to dissolve, releasing the pressure of what happened yesterday and what must happen tomorrow, existing only in a quiet, suspended state of timeless grace. This timeless grace ultimately reveals the most beautiful, comforting promise of the quantum world, the promise of eternal return and perfect restoration. Imagine a closed, perfectly sealed quantum system, perhaps an electron confined to a tiny microscopic box. If you track the electron's wave over time, it quickly spreads out, bouncing off the walls, interfering with itself, and dissolving into a chaotic, messy blur of probabilities. It looks as though the original neat starting point has been lost forever to the chaos. But quantum mechanics is governed by beautiful cyclical mathematics. If you wait long enough, letting the waves slosh and echo in the dark, all of those chaotic ripples will eventually miraculously perfectly align once again. In a phenomenon known as quantum revival, the scattered wave packet completely reconstructs itself, rising out of the noise to form the exact, pristine, perfect shape it had at the very beginning. The chaos is an illusion. It is simply a long, complex journey back to the start. Nothing is ever permanently broken or lost to the void. Every scattered piece of energy, every fragmented thought will eventually find its way home, reassembling into a state of absolute original wholeness. As you slip fully into the deep, dark waters of sleep, know that you are simply undergoing your own quiet revival. The scattered energy of your waking life is smoothly gathering itself back together in the night, restoring you, renewing you, and preparing to return you, perfectly whole and brilliantly refreshed, when the morning light finally arrives. As that quiet, perfect restoration unfolds, making you completely whole in the dark, we find that the quantum world also possesses a deeply playful, almost literary kind of magic. In our waking hours, we assume that an object and its properties are permanently heavily fused together. An apple cannot be separated from its red colour, and a stone cannot be separated from its weight. But deep within the crystal pathways of a specialised neutron interferometer, scientists have successfully recreated the impossible magic of the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland. By splitting a beam of neutrons and using incredibly delicate, weak measurements, they managed to send the physical mass of the particles down one path, while sending their magnetic spin, their essential quantum property, down a completely different diverging path. For a brief suspended moment in the dark laboratory, the smile of the particle travelled entirely independent of the cat. The property hovered in the empty air, completely untethered from its physical form. This gentle separation reminds us that the heavy, physical burdens we carry do not define our absolute essence. You can allow your worries, your daytime titles, and the heavy labels of the world to separate from you tonight, travelling down a different path entirely, leaving your pure, unburdened consciousness free to simply float in the quiet dark. Freed from those heavy labels, your consciousness might feel as though it is expanding, stretching out like a gentle, spreading ripple across the surface of a perfectly still pond. This feeling of becoming a wave is an absolute mathematical reality for every single piece of matter in the universe, described beautifully by the de Broglie wavelength. We often restrict the idea of wave-like motion to tiny invisible things like photons of light or wandering electrons. But the truth is, every moving object has a soft quantum wave inherently associated with it. A heavy silver coin tossed softly onto a velvet cushion, a single autumn leaf drifting slowly down through the cool night air, and even your own physical body as it gently rises and falls with each breath. All of these possess a physical sweeping wave. Because everyday objects are so massive, their waves are unimaginably small, tightly and invisibly woven into the fabric of space, yet they are undeniably there. You're not a static, rigid monument of stone. You're a slow, continuous rolling wave of matter, undulating softly through the continuum of space and time. Let the rhythm of your breath match this invisible cosmic ripple, feeling the gentle, wave-like nature of your own existence slowly washing over the shores of sleep. As your personal wave synchronizes with the quiet atmosphere of the room, you are joining a much larger, beautiful phenomenon of spontaneous harmony known to physicists as Dicke superradiance. Imagine a vast, dark chamber filled with billions of individual restless atoms. Normally, if these atoms were given a small spark of energy, they would each eventually release it as a tiny flash of light, completely out of sync, creating a dim, random and chaotic glimmer over a long, drawn-out period of time. But when these atoms are packed closely together in the dark, they begin to subtly listen to one another through the quantum vacuum. Their individual quantum fields softly overlap and merge. Suddenly, without any outside conductor to guide them, the entire scattered cloud perfectly synchronizes. Instead of a chaotic glimmer, they exhale all of their energy in one singular, brilliant, coordinated pulse of light. They transition from a crowd of solitary, lonely voices into a single, flawless, harmonious choir. Your own mind contains thousands of scattered, frantic thoughts from the waking day. But as you rest here, they are listening to the quiet of the night, slowly overlapping, synchronizing, and exhaling their restless energy in one long, smooth, coordinated breath of profound peace. With that long, coordinated exhale, the physical body grows noticeably heavier, sinking luxuriously into the mattress, and the mind can simply drift, allowing the dense, complex information of the day to finally wash away. This act of forgetting, of intentionally letting go of data, is not just a psychological comfort, it is a fundamental physical law of the universe. According to Landauer's principle, the erasure of information carries a literal physical weight. In the microscopic world of computing, whenever a single bit of information is permanently deleted from a quantum or classical system, a tiny, irreducible puff of heat must be released into the surrounding environment. To forget is, quite literally, to exhale energy. It is an act of physical unburdening. The memories, the endless to-do lists, and the complex worries you have been holding on to all require a subtle, constant internal tension to maintain. As you allow them to slip away into the dark, you are releasing that tension. You're cooling down the machinery of your mind, letting the microscopic heat of holding on dissipate harmlessly into the cool, dark air of the bedroom. Forgetting is not a failure of the mind. It is a beautiful, necessary and deeply physical release. As that microscopic heat dissipates and the past softly fades, you might feel a profound sense of connection to the quiet stillness of the present moment. But the quantum universe weaves connections that are not merely confined to the right now. In recent awe-inspiring theoretical and experimental work, physicists have demonstrated the mind-bending reality of time-like entanglement. We are familiar with two particles sharing a mystical instantaneous bond across vast empty distances of space. But time-like entanglement occurs when a particle is deeply, fundamentally linked to a completely different particle that exists entirely in the future or the past. A photon measured today can be mathematically entangled with a photon that was already destroyed yesterday, or one that has not yet been born tomorrow. The rigid, forward-marching boundaries of time become as porous and transparent as glass. This means that the peace you are cultivating in this very moment is not isolated. It is softly reaching backward, soothing the tired versions of yourself from earlier today, and it is reaching forward, gently preparing a calm, stable, waiting harbour for the version of yourself that will wake up tomorrow morning. You're intimately entangled with your own future, weaving a continuous protective thread of calm across the passing hours. This ability to reach backward across time and heal the chaos is beautifully demonstrated in a magnetic dance known as the spin echo. Imagine a perfectly synchronized group of atomic spins, like a group of dancers moving in flawless unison across a ballroom floor. Over time, as they interact with the tiny natural imperfections of their environment, they lose their rhythm. They drift out of phase, becoming a chaotic, disorganized crowd, seemingly lost to entropy and disorder forever. But scientists can introduce a single, precisely timed pulse of radio waves, a gentle, energetic instruction. This pulse does not forcefully shove them back into place. Instead, it acts as a perfect microscopic mirror, seamlessly reversing the direction of every single dancer's phase. The atoms continue to move, but now they are effortlessly rewinding their own chaos. Moments later, the scattered dancers perfectly converge again, entirely recreating their original flawless harmony in a sudden, brilliant echo of their starting state. It proves that what appears to be permanent chaos and exhaustion is often just a reversible illusion. You have not lost your center. The quiet pulse of your resting breath is simply reversing the phase of the day, bringing all your scattered energy back into a sudden, beautiful, and deeply familiar harmony. As you settle deeply into this returning harmony, notice how the silence in the room feels almost tangible, like a soft, invisible blanket resting over the furniture, the walls, and the floor. In the quantum world, absolute silence and absolute emptiness simply do not exist. Even when you remove every single heavy particle, every bright photon of light, and every trace of heat from a space, the underlying vacuum remains active. It hums with temporary virtual particles flickering in and out of reality in the dark. This invisible hum is so real that it actually provides a structural cushion for the matter in our universe, a gentle phenomenon known as the Lamb shift. Inside a hydrogen atom, there are certain energy levels for the orbiting electron that, according to early mathematics, should be absolutely identical. But the tiny, unseen fluctuations of the quantum vacuum gently bump and nudge the electron, softly lifting one energy level just a microscopic fraction above the other. This tiny structural shift, born entirely from the pressure of empty space, is what makes the universe stable. The nothingness of the dark room is not a void waiting to consume you. It is a supportive, active presence. It is a soft, invisible architecture gently holding you up, providing the tiny, invisible nudges that keep your rest stable and deeply secure. Protected by this active, invisible cushion, your mind can seek out the ultimate hiding place, a state of profound shelter where the noise of the outside world simply cannot reach. Physicists have spent decades searching for a mythical, elusive quantum particle known as a Majorana fermion. Unlike every other fundamental piece of matter, a Majorana fermion is its own exact antiparticle, a perfect mirror image folded seamlessly into itself. But their true magic lies in how they manifest in specialized ultra-cold nanowires. They do not exist as a single, vulnerable point. The quantum information of the particle splits exactly in half, hiding at the extreme, opposite ends of the microscopic wire. Because its essence is divided and spread out over a distance, it becomes incredibly, almost invulnerably robust against local disturbances. If a piece of stray heat or cosmic radiation strikes the middle of the wire, the particle does not collapse. It ignores the noise completely because its identity is safely anchored at the distant edges. You can borrow this profound quantum strategy tonight. You do not have to keep all your awareness centered in the busy, noisy middle of your mind. You can spread your awareness out to the distant edges, to the tips of your toes, the quiet rhythm of your pulse, the far corners of the dark room, becoming completely immune to the passing noise. From those quiet, distant edges, your thoughts might begin to wander, slowly pacing through the dreamlike shifting landscapes of the mind. In the classical waking world, a wandering path is often chaotic and inefficient, like a traveller flipping a coin at every crossroad, taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back, bumping into walls and exhausting themselves retracing their steps. But a quantum particle wanders using a beautifully elegant method called a quantum walk. Because the particle exists as a spreading wave of probability, it does not have to choose just one path at a crossroad. It seamlessly glides down every possible street, alley and pathway simultaneously. It expands outward in a perfectly symmetrical spreading pattern, smoothly exploring the entire landscape all at once, without ever getting lost, hitting a dead end, or having to double back. There is no anxiety in a quantum walk, no fear of making the wrong turn or choosing the incorrect path. As your mind begins to drift ever closer to the edge of sleep, let it take a gentle quantum walk. You do not need to strictly guide your thoughts or force them down a single logical track. Let them spread out smoothly, exploring the quiet possibilities of the night, gracefully experiencing everything at once without any pressure to arrive at a specific destination. As your thoughts spread out in that smooth, effortless way, nothing needs to be pushed, forced, or laboured over. Even the transfer of deep, vital energy can happen without a single spark or flying particle crossing the dark room. Deep within the cells of light-harvesting plants and inside glowing, fluorescent molecules, there is a magical process known as first-resonance energy transfer. When one molecule absorbs a drop of energy, it does not spit out a photon of light to physically pass that energy to its neighbour. Instead, if the 2 molecules are vibrating at the exact same, harmonious frequency, the energy simply glides across the empty space, passing from one to the other through a completely silent, non-radiative, invisible connection. It is like two perfectly tuned musical instruments placed across a large room from each other. When you pluck the string of the first, the second begins to hum and sing without ever being touched. The energy is transferred purely through resonance, through a deep shared vibration in the fabric of space. The universe does not always require hard work or physical movement to share its warmth and its power. As you rest entirely still in the dark, simply by tuning your breathing to the slow, peaceful frequency of the night, you're effortlessly drawing in the restorative, healing energy of the quiet world, moving closer and closer to the profound, dream-filled silence of deep sleep. As you flow seamlessly into that endless, gentle light, carrying only the softest remnants of the waking world, we can discover that profound, unbreakable harmony is not just a promise for the distant cosmic future. It can exist in the smallest, most delicate structures right here in the present. In the deep, resonant silence of advanced physics laboratories, scientists often work with perfect microscopic spheres of pure spun glass, no larger than a tiny bead of morning dew. When a single, precise beam of light is introduced into this sphere at exactly the right angle, it does not simply pass through the glass or scatter into the room. Instead, it becomes safely trapped in a breathtaking phenomenon known as a whispering gallery mode. The photons gently curve along the smooth inner surface of the sphere, racing in a continuous, endless circle. They bounce so softly and at such a perfect grazing angle against the curved boundary that almost zero energy is lost to the outside world. The light hums along the glass like a hushed, reverberating secret shared under the curved dome of an ancient, quiet cathedral, surviving for millions of silent round trips before it ever slowly fades. It is a beautiful, physical demonstration of how boundaries can be supportive rather than restrictive. The walls of the glass do not extinguish the light. They guide it into a perpetual glowing embrace. As your mind settles into the quiet boundaries of the night, you can let your thoughts roll smoothly along the gentle edges of your awareness, looping softly and continuously without ever losing their quiet, steady glow. As that quiet light traces the perfect edge of the glass, a tiny, almost imperceptible portion of its energy actually seeps outside the physical boundary of the sphere. This ghostly, lingering glow is known as an evanescent wave. When light bounces off a perfectly reflective surface from the inside, the strict mathematical rules of quantum mechanics absolutely forbid the wave of energy from simply ending abruptly at the wall. Instead, the wave softens, stretches, and bleeds just a fraction of a millimeter into the empty, dark air beyond the mirror, creating a faint, invisible halo that clings tightly to the surface. It is a special kind of light that refuses to travel or propagate outward. It is light that simply lingers, gently holding its ground at the very edge of reality. It reminds us that in the quantum universe, no boundary is absolutely rigid, and no reflection is entirely contained. The warmth and peace you cultivate deep within yourself tonight cannot be perfectly trapped within the confines of your physical body. It naturally and softly seeps into the room around you, penetrating the air, the blankets, and the shadows, creating a gentle, protective, and calming halo that completely blankets the space in a quiet, undisturbed peace. Within this protective, glowing halo, the interactions between individual atoms take on a deeply soothing, almost considerate quality. Imagine a dense, floating cloud of atoms resting together in a cold, dark vacuum chamber. If you illuminate just one of these atoms, exciting its outermost electron, the atom physically swells into a massive, highly sensitive state of being known as a Rydberg atom. But what happens next in the dark is a profound display of quantum courtesy known as the Rydberg blockade. The single, expanded atom creates an invisible, calming sphere of influence entirely around itself. By its mere, quiet presence, it gently shifts the delicate energy levels of all its immediate neighbours, making it mathematically and physically impossible for any of them to become excited by the same light. It effectively, silently tells the surrounding atoms to remain quiet, still, and entirely at peace. a singular spark of energy pacifies the entire surrounding crowd, ensuring that the space remains calm and untroubled. In the vast landscape of your own resting mind, you do not need to hunt down and quiet every single anxious thought individually. A single, deep breath, a single moment of profoundly focused peace, creates its own gentle blockade. It radiates naturally and effortlessly, quieting the surrounding mental noise without requiring any struggle or conscious effort. Your breath continues to rise and fall in that effortless rhythm. The muscles in your neck and shoulders melt downward, yielding entirely to the heavy pull of the earth, and the mind can simply, beautifully drift. This effortless quieting allows the deepest, most resistant parts of the physical world to suddenly find perfect harmony. We know that electrons share the exact same negative electrical charge, which means they naturally, constantly repel each other, pushing away with a fierce, invisible force. But when certain metal alloys are cooled down to a serene, freezing quiet, dropping close to absolute zero, the electrons undergo a breathtaking change of heart. As a single electron glides through the crystal lattice of the cold metal, it softly pulls the surrounding positive atoms toward itself. This tiny structural dimple in the crystal creates a subtle, temporary pocket of positive charge that gently, quietly, attracts a second electron. Against all their natural, fundamental instincts to remain isolated and apart, the two electrons bind together into what is called a Cooper pair. Linked invisibly by the soft, microscopic vibrations of the solid world around them, they begin to move as one, perfectly bypassing the friction of the metal to create a state of pure superconductivity. It is a profound reminder that internal resistance can always be overcome. Even the most fundamental repulsions can be smoothed out in the quiet cold, transforming friction into a perfect, unified, and completely effortless glide. As they glide seamlessly through that frictionless cold, we find other crystalline worlds where the normal waking rules of physics seem to gently dissolve into a dream. Deep within a rare, beautifully structured crystal known as spin ice, the magnetic forces are arranged in a complex overlapping web of pyramids that perfectly mimics the microscopic structure of frozen water. In the everyday world we inhabit, if you break a solid bar magnet in half, you always, inevitably get a new north and south pole. They are permanently, stubbornly inseparable. But within the unique, frustrated geometry of this frozen spin ice, the quantum shifting of the atoms allows the magnetic poles to softly, quietly decouple. A single north pole can gracefully detach from its southern partner and wander freely through the crystal lattice, moving like a solitary floating ghost through the dark. These are known as emergent magnetic monopoles. They drift untethered, breaking one of the oldest rules of magnetism simply because the peaceful environment allows them to let go. You too can decouple from the heavy things that usually bind you in the daylight. You do not always have to carry the opposite heavy pole of your daily worries. You can let those dense burdens detach, allowing your resting mind to drift untethered, floating absolutely free in the vast, open and unburdened space of the night. This untethered, drifting freedom can be found hidden deep within even the most familiar essential substances on Earth. Consider a single, microscopic drop of water drawn deep into the Earth's crust and eventually trapped inside the tiny hexagonal channels of a growing beryl crystal, the ancient stone that gives us emeralds and aquamarines. The channel is incredibly narrow, forcing the water molecules to arrange themselves into a delicate six-pointed ring. But when subjected to extreme conditions, the water does not just sit completely still and frozen in the dark. Governed by the magic of quantum tunneling, the tiny hydrogen atoms within the ring begin to blur and shift, simultaneously occupying all 6 possible positions in the hexagon at the exact same time. The water entirely loses its rigid, defined shape and becomes a single, continuous, spreading wave of probability. It transforms into a perfect, unbroken ring of shared existence, completely delocalized, existing everywhere within its tiny emerald cage at once. As the heaviness of your body sinks deeper and deeper into the bed, your own sense of a rigid, localized self can begin to soften in exactly this way. You're not strictly confined to the heavy edges of your physical form. Your peaceful awareness can blur and spread, softly filling the room in a continuous, gentle wave of comfort and quiet presence. As this soft wave of comfort fills the darkened room, it can reveal a hidden, elegant order that requires absolutely no strict routine or endless repetition to maintain its beauty. In the waking world, we so often find our comfort in predictable, repeating patterns, adhering to the rigid schedules of the clock. But the universe offers a deeper, more mysterious kind of peace in the form of quasi-crystals. For centuries, scientists firmly believed that all solid crystals had to be built from simple geometric blocks that repeated themselves infinitely in all directions, like perfect identical tiles on a floor. But quasi-crystals are forged from incredibly complex varying shapes that fit together flawlessly, leaving absolutely no empty space, yet their sprawling pattern never ever repeats itself. You can travel across the microscopic surface of a quasi-crystal for a mathematical eternity, scanning its beautiful shifting geometry, and you will never encounter the exact same arrangement of atoms twice. It is a cosmic masterpiece of ordered unpredictability. It tells us that true harmony does not require rigid, monotonous routine. You can find perfect peace and deep, lasting stability in a life that is constantly shifting, a mind that is always evolving, and a quiet night that is beautifully, uniquely its own, never having to exactly repeat the day that came before. Even within systems that seem entirely chaotic, restless, and lost to disorder, the quantum world preserves an invisible, lingering memory of perfect peace. Imagine a complex, unevenly shaped arena, a microscopic billiard table, where a quantum particle is set loose to bounce off the curved walls. In the classical physics of our everyday world, the particle would trace a wild, unpredictable and endlessly tangled path, quickly devolving into pure, frantic chaos. But when physicists map the quantum wave of that moving particle, they find something miraculous called a quantum scar. Amidst the chaotic, spreading noise of the wave, there is a distinct, concentrated ridge of bright probability that perfectly smoothly traces the simplest, most elegant and most repeating path available in the arena. The wave holds on to a deep, structural memory of order, a quiet, glowing scar of perfect rhythm shining clearly through the surrounding storm. It is a deeply comforting truth that chaos can never entirely erase the underlying structure of peace. No matter how tangled, busy, or frantic your thoughts may have become during the waking hours, there is a quantum scar of deep, rhythmic calm permanently woven into the core of your being, patiently waiting to guide you softly back to the center of your rest. Your center is completely quiet now. The heavy, steady pull of gravity feels like a soft, welcoming blanket draped across your limbs. Nothing needs to be held too tightly, and nothing needs to be forced. At this quiet, effortless center, the connections we hold are incredibly profound, governed by a strict, beautiful law of quantum loyalty known as the monogamy of entanglement. In the macroscopic world, we can split our attention in 100 different directions, sharing our energy with countless tasks, glowing screens, and distant concerns. But a quantum particle simply cannot do this. If two particles become maximally entangled, sharing a single, perfectly unified quantum state across the void, they cannot share that perfect connection with any other particle in the universe. The absolute depth of their bond requires total exclusivity. If a third particle drifts too close and tries to interfere or entangle with one of them, the original perfect bond must gently soften, weaken, and dilute to accommodate it. True, perfect entanglement is entirely monogamous. It is a stunning, mathematical reminder of the power of singular focus. When you bring your full, undivided attention to the simple, gentle act of resting, You're cutting the weak, scattered, demanding threads of the day. You're entering into a perfect, profound entanglement with the present moment, forming a deep, exclusive and restorative bond with the total silence of the night. As you bond completely and exclusively with this silence, you might realize that even in your quietest moments, you have never truly walked through this world alone. In the intricate, beautiful equations of quantum electrodynamics, the most fundamental particles in the universe, like the electron, are never entirely bare. If you were to look closely at a single electron resting perfectly still in the infinite void, it is not a solitary, naked point of charge. It is constantly, quietly summoning a shimmering, shifting cloud of virtual photons and electron-positron pairs out of the empty vacuum. These phantom particles softly bubble up, swarm gently around the electron, and vanish again in fractions of a nanosecond. They form a soft, protective, ever-changing halo, known to physicists as a virtual particle dress. This means that the fundamental atomic building blocks of your body are clothed in the very fabric of the cosmos. You're dressed in the quiet, sparkling energy of the void itself. You're surrounded, shielded, and softly held by a universe that is constantly reaching out of the dark to wrap you in its shimmering, invisible light. You can rest deeply now, knowing that this gentle, cosmic embrace is always there, and it will hold you safely and securely until the new dawn finally breaks. As you drift at the very edge of the deep, velvety dark, we arrive at the final, most expansive secret of all, the ultimate bridge between the tiny world of the atom and the vast architecture of your own consciousness. In the most advanced reaches of theoretical physics, there is a beautiful, shimmering idea known as quantum coherence. It describes a state where every part of a system, every particle, every wave, every ripple of energy exists in a perfect synchronized harmony, vibrating as one singular unified whole. For a long time, we believed this state was incredibly fragile, something that could only exist in the frozen silence of a laboratory. But as we look at the breathtaking complexity of the universe and the quiet mystery of our own awareness, a profound possibility emerges. That the entire cosmos is held together by this very same principle of elegant, effortless unity. Fact 101 is the realization that you're not merely a witness to this quantum dance. You're the dance itself. Every atom in your resting body was forged in the heart of a dying star, and every spark of light in your mind is governed by the same ancient, gentle laws that guide the galaxies through the void. This is the final wonder, that the universe is not something outside of you, looking in. It is a vast, beautiful, and deeply peaceful system that has spent billions of years learning how to become you, so that it might finally rest, close its eyes, and experience the quiet magic of its own creation through your dreams. You are the universe at rest, safely tucked into the small, warm corner of a quiet room, perfectly complete, perfectly whole, and profoundly home. The journey of 101 wonders is now complete. The path we have travelled together, from the shimmering vacuum of space to the hidden cathedrals of the atom, has led you back here, to the simple, sacred stillness of this moment. You can let it all go now. Every fact, every image, every rolling wave of information can softly dissolve into the dark, like a single drop of ink into a vast midnight ocean. You do not need to hold on to any of it. Your mind has heard the music, and now it is time for the silence that follows the final note. Feel the profound heaviness of your body, a deep magnetic pull that anchors you to the earth with a love that is older than time. Your breath is a slow, automatic tide, rising and falling without effort, carrying you further and further away from the shores of the waking world. The room is a sanctuary of shadow and soft air. The house is a cocoon of safety. The night is a vast, welcoming sea of potential, and you are ready to sink beneath its surface. There is no more work to be done. There are no more mysteries to solve. The quantum fields are quiet. The stars are at peace. The long, beautiful story of the day has reached its final page, and the ink is softly fading into the white space of sleep. You're drifting now, moving into the deep, luminous waters where thoughts turn into dreams and dreams turn into rest. Every cell in your body is aligned with the silence. Every part of your soul is yielding to the dark. You are safe. You are held. You're exactly where you are meant to be. And now, 101 wonders are resting with you. Sleep now. Good night.